I started with the wrong video. I love it. I love it. I'll never stop being goofy when I that's just how it's gonna go. All right. So I am doing a random Wednesday night stream. I didn't even do anything on Monday, but you might have seen my video with David Paulman where we reviewed the Gavin Ortland video. So go check that out. So welcome everybody. Who do we have here? All right, we've got Sapir, a metaethics stream on this channel. Yeah, I didn't even title this one. I just wanted to get right into it. All right, so Sapir, it looks like you get 1,000 lance loot, and Sneer is here for the loot. Sneer says, "I'm here for the loot." You get 500 of it. Good job. You're gonna have to beat Sapir next time. But hey, if you leave a second comment, I'll give you the other 250 that would go to third place. So give me a second comment, and you'll get it. Oh man, we got so much that we could cover today. I'll start with a relatively short video, or at least a video where I wanted to show a couple specific clips. All right, Sneer, you didn't get it. It's going to spiritual psychotherapy services. You get 250 for the lens loot. And Jocaz is here. Welcome, welcome. All right, so I didn't have any kind of formal plan today. I'm just going to get into it. There's one quick video I want to show you a couple clips from, and I'll show you why. So let's start with that one. Oh, 1 second. Let's set these up so that they're all ready to go. I don't know how many of these clips I'm going to get into. Wait, are those separate? Yeah, they are separate videos. They had 2 videos that looked almost identical. Like, what's going on there? Oh, and maybe I don't know if I'll get a chance to respond to Philosopfunculist, but I will throw a link in here because, as you could see, the video is called "Responding to Lance Independent's Criticism of My Argument for Objective Moral Law." So there's a video response directly to me. No one ever does these, so he did a response video, and it's a great one. It's just very exciting to see somebody with a different perspective than me engaging with me and disagreeing with me, and not doing some of the things that I see so many, at least realists in the online debate space do, which is kind of get a little hostile. It's so unnecessary. Okay, so let's have a look at this first video. I know maybe I could be a bit sassy in the way I respond to people. So the first one, you will see what I'm getting at. In fact, I'll just show you my comment first. Yeah. I'll show you the comment first. All right, let's share this one. Am I forgetting how to do things on here? Oh, hey, Nathan's here. What's up, Nathan? How you doing? We got to do a video, but we got to do something other than meta ethics. You got to find something for us to talk about. Oh, actually, I'll mention this. I don't know how many people here watch Modern Day Debate, but they have something coming up called Debate Con. It's like an in-person event. It's only a few hours away from me, and I'm thinking of going to it. So I don't know if someone can throw a link in the description to it. I think you could probably still buy tickets. I don't know. I didn't check. I don't know. Maybe if it's sold out, it's sold out and I can't go. But it's got Alex O'Connor, Michael Jones, and quite a few other people that are going to be debating like live in person. So, some people don't like the channel very much. Some people like the channel. I don't know if I should go to that or not. Oh, right. And we got, and what do you think in the chat if you have thoughts on that? We've got Marv here. Hello, Lance from Germany. What's up? How's it going? What time is it in Germany? I'm looking that up. It's midnight. I don't know. Maybe there's how many time zones are there? But if you're there at midnight, that's cool. Welcome. All right. So let me show you this first one. And this is one where I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but let me just get to it. I'm being silly here, saying I'm going to show you something and I'm not like teasing you with it. All right. Just going to not share the wrong screen. Okay. So check out. So this is a comment I wrote under a video. So I'll just read it to you. I don't know if it's how visible it is. So I say at 4:22. Oh, sorry. First, I should say what the video is. It's called "Alex O'Connor is Wrong About Ethics," and you can see it's a relatively short video, and it's responding to Alex O'Connor, who's been all over the internet lately. He recently was on Jubilee, and it was like 25 Christians versus Alex O'Connor, and you should see the format there. They have you talk to people pretty quickly. People can vote them off. 10 a.m. in Tasmania. Are you really in Tasmania? There's just something about Tasmania. I was always fascinated by Tasmania when I was young, and Australia more generally, just because of like the the animals that live there are just so different from the rest of the world, all the marsupials and everything. So I always had this kind of like, oh, I'd love to go there and check out the flora and the fauna. I don't know if I said that when I was young. I probably wasn't saying the flora and the fauna. It's a pier, only 6 here. Yeah, it's only 6 here too. So you're on the East Coast? You don't have to tell me where you're at, but I'm on the East Coast. Oh yeah, Brandon Wise here. Is that the Lance Bush, the meta ethics king? I like how you're separating it. If you've got the link to that TikTok video, throw that in the I could pin it for everybody. Someone on TikTok made a video of me that is completely ridiculous about me being the meta ethics king. And I thought it was really funny. So if you got a link for that, throw it in. All right. Zictomorph says Alex crushed all of them on Jubilee. And Digital says, I think in Jubilee you get that Tim Howard guy coming that's absolutely cursed. Bayesian Markov chain neural net apologetic argument. I don't know anything about that. I did see that Michael Jones and a few other people, including that was Tim Howard and a couple other people, all did a kind of autopsy on that discussion, and that might be worth checking out. Yeah, but throw a link for the TikTok thing in there if you could find it. Anyway, so back to this. Here's what I said for this video on Alex O'Connor. At 422, you say that, quote, virtually all thinkers forever. And then he says, I sometimes I try to modify things because people kind of reword themselves when they're speaking. So virtually all thinkers forever have been moral realists. And then I say, and at 1344, you say that there are multiple reasons why emotivism and subjectivism fail, stating that they fail to recognize virtually all humans in recorded history have used moral discussion, moral conversations. When the average normal person says that is wrong, what the average normal person means is it's wrong. And then I go on to say, there's over 7,000 languages in the world today and countless others that no longer exist. How could we possibly be in a position to know that almost everyone in all of these languages and many others, 7,000 today, there were many others that are no longer with us, speak and think about morality in the same way? The claim you are making seems like a very strong empirical claim that would require extensive empirical evidence in anthropology, history, psychology, and linguistics, much of which would depend on rather complicated interaction between these fields and would draw on cross-cultural psychological data and comparative linguistics. The problem is that we don't have anywhere near the required amount of data to sustain the sort of claim you're making. And to the extent that we have contemporary psychological data on how people speak and think, it doesn't clearly support the notion that almost everyone speaks or thinks like a realist, but not like a non-cognitivist or a subjectivist. In fact, some of the best empirical studies conducted to date, such as Polzer and Wright, 2020, actually found very high and consistent rates of subjectivism among US participants. Note, as an aside, I'm very critical of those studies. I still like the studies, but I am critical of them. Anyway, and more recent cross-cultural studies. So Polzer and some collaborators have done some cross-cultural studies, and they found, likewise, find low rates of consistent support for realism among other populations. So I conclude by saying, at present, it simply does not appear that there is good evidence that most people speak or think like moral realists and don't speak or think like subjectivists or non-cognitivists. So there's both a lack of positive evidence that people do speak or think like moral realists and a lack of evidence falsifying or demonstrating that they don't speak like subjectivists or non-cognitivists. It's very hard to get really solid data on that. We have a few studies. The Polzer and Wright study found high rates of people endorsing some form of relativism. So you had very high rates of individual subjectivism and cultural relativism, which would be relativizing moral claims to individuals or to groups like cultures. But it found relatively low rates of non-cognitivism. And in an associated paper that appealed to the same data set, Polzer and Wright argue that it doesn't really look like people are non-cognitivists according to their data. However, there was a paper that came out, I think shortly thereafter, by Taylor Davis that actually found that non-cognitive rates were very high in that particular study. James Beebe also has some empirical research that found very high rates of non-cognitivist responses. Now, at face value, these studies may appear to provide pretty good evidence that people are non-cognitivists or relativists or whatever. I'm very critical of those claims because I think that there are still validity issues with these studies. Note, though, that Beebe, Davis, Polzer, and Wright were all doing their best to correct for methodological shortcomings in earlier research. So to the extent that we have any like informative data at all, it looks like the better your methods, the higher your anti-realist rates, at least among the populations that have most of the populations that have been tested. So does that mean most people are anti-realists? I don't think so. But what we don't have is good evidence that they are realists. Now, take all that in mind, like what I said here about hey, these look like empirical claims, and the data doesn't really support it. It looks like this would be pretty tough, um, tough thing to gather evidence for. So I'm a bit puzzled by was the response to this. So it's Dr. David Pendergrass said, and I think this person that made the video, right? Yeah, responded by saying, I obviously meant, quote, for the extant documents we possess as accessed by average scholars in the English speaking world, using the various translations afforded to us which speak of or imply morality, it is assumed that they are moral realists. Yeah, you can assume they're moral realists. I don't know if like what exactly you mean by assume, but assume like with evidence or without evidence. Like, what is the evidence that the people that he's talking about are moral realists? But also, he says, I obviously meant, for the extant documents we possess as accessed by the various scholars in English speaking world. I'm going to play the clips from the video and I want you to judge whether you think that's obviously what he meant. Now, that might have been what he meant, but how obvious was that? I'll take someone's word for it. If they're like, look, this is what I meant, fair enough. And then he says, and I completely disagree about your view about what you think at present is true. So what I say at the end, at present, it does not appear that there is good evidence that most people speak or think like moral realists and don't speak or think like subjectivists or non-cognitivists. So note he says two things. He obviously meant that specific thing that he just said there. Um, and then he says, and I completely disagree about your view about what's at present. So I had asked, thanks for the response. Why do you disagree? And I was hoping that he would explain why he disagrees with me about the claim that at present we really don't have good evidence that most people are realists. If we do have good evidence that most people are realists, I'd love to see it. Like, what is that? What is that evidence? Okay, so let me put a link to this video so you could go check out the comment. And do feel free to pop in there and let me see if that. It's like doing that thing where it adds seconds onto the end, and I want to make sure that it'll still work if I cut that off of there. Will that work? Yeah. Here it is. So, you know, um, if you have thoughts on the video, do feel free to comment. Just definitely don't be rude or unpleasant or like hypercritical. I try to be friendly in these exchanges. Okay, so having said all that, so I made these comments basically saying, look, it sounds like you're saying most people are realists and so on and so forth. And he says, I really meant this. I obviously meant this, and he disagrees with me about that. Now let's have a look at the claims that he makes in the video. So the first is at 4:22, and the second is at 13:44. So let's look at the first.
Thinkers forever have thought have been moral realists.
Let's take it back a little bit.
Parasite per se, but it's an accompanying feature of the behavior. So moral realists say. Now, virtually all thinkers forever have thought have been moral realists around the globe for recorded history.
So he says around the globe there, but then he says here that he obviously meant by average scholars in the English speaking world. I'm a little puzzled by that. If you're saying around the globe, that seems like the opposite of specifically English speaking scholars, because thinkers from around the globe were speaking other languages besides English. So it sounds like a claim to me in the video. Like, I think a reasonable interpretation of that is thinkers all over the world, like everywhere. Isn't that what around the globe means? And yet here he says that he obviously meant, for the extant documents we possess as accessed by the average scholars in the English speaking world, using the various translations afforded to. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I misunderstood. He wasn't saying English speakers. He was saying for the extant documents we possess as accessed by the English speaking world using translations afforded to us. So he is talking about people from all around the world. But insofar as we've interpreted that through translations in English. Okay. So that makes more sense. Okay. Now I got it. Cool. I don't think that's obviously what he meant, but fair enough if that's what he means. But then I'm a little unclear on what the claim is. Like, is the claim that these people are realists or that the scholars have assumed that they're realists? And if the claim is that scholars have assumed that they're realists, are those assumptions warranted? And does he think that the assumptions are warranted? And if so, on the basis of what? So, okay, fair enough. So we have English speaking scholars that have translated text and documents from around the world. And he says here, it is assumed that they, presumably the people that these translations are translations from, that those people are moral realists. Okay, it is assumed. It's like passive voice, but assumed by who? By the scholars? Why are they assuming this? And how does he know that the scholars assume this? Like, did they explicitly say this? And then if they do explicitly say this, on the basis of what? Like, are these reasonable assumptions? And if so, what are they based on? And does he agree with them? So a lot of lack of clarity there. I don't really know what the claim is at this point. So to me, it's not so obvious that this is what he meant. And in fact, not only is it not obvious what he meant, it's not clear what he means here to me. Uh, like it seems like there could be some elaboration on what's meant here. So let me have a look at the chat and see what you think of that. Oh my gosh. I just thought this was funny, so I'm putting it up here. Sully Sullivan says, y'all remember when Cameron said it's Bayesian time and Bayes all over those guys? Is that a reference to Morbius and people talking about Morbin time? Hayden Walton says there will always be validity issues with these kinds of studies. I agree. I write a lot about this. I mean, a big thing that I focus on is validity in these sorts of studies. Sully says if everyone on Earth affirmed moral realism explicitly, it would still be false. Well, I agree with you, but if we could bracket the question of do people think realism is true and consider that independent of whether it in fact is true. Montez says, yeah, I would say he very obviously didn't mean that. Yeah, well, maybe that's what he meant to say. When I'm in a live stream or I'm recording, sometimes I say things that don't clearly convey what I intended to say, and I'm like, well, that's what I thought, or that's what I intended to say. So, Zictomorph says Western centrism without even knowing. Yeah, he said virtually all thinkers forever. So it's still unclear to me from the quote that he provided. Is he saying virtually? Let's listen to that line again. Is he saying all thinkers thought other people are realists, or that all the thinkers were moral realists? I thought he was saying the second one. And then if that's the case, then what does he mean by thinkers? And if it's like they're thinkers, the scholars, or anybody that thinks of it, like what does that mean exactly? I'm still unclear on it. I would love to get some clarity on it. So if he sees this video, I'd be happy to talk to you about this. And this is my area of research is one of my areas of research. It's the big one for me, but there are others. Are these empirical questions like, are people that don't really have training in academic philosophy, are they moral realists? Do they have realist commitments? Is it implicit in the way that they speak or the way they think or the languages that they speak? I'm really interested in these questions. So if you'd like to talk to me about this, I'd be delighted to talk to you. I don't think we're going to agree with one another, but I think we could probably learn from one another. Okay, so let's have a look at the...
All thinkers forever have been moral realists around.
Yeah, so he said all thinkers forever have been moral realists, not that they've claimed that other people are moral realists. So all thinkers forever have been moral realists. Look at that again.
All thinkers forever have been moral realists around the globe for recorded history. And I'll come.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what that means. It doesn't sound like that's English specific, and it's not clear that he's talking about the interpretations on the basis of English translations. None of that seems to be. Maybe there's
more in a second. And something that developed not that long ago, frankly, is a different way of thinking about it. So that's a realist. The opposite is subjectivist or relativism or non-cognitivism or...
Yeah, so he says the opposite is, and then he lists a variety of views. I would, the opposite of realism, you might say, is like non-realism, like it's just not being a realist. You might say it's anti-realism, that might be fine. But he lists several views. None of those are specifically the opposite. They would be non-realist views, but the opposite of realism isn't subjectivism or non-cognitivism. The opposite of realism, you might say, is anti-realism or the negation of realism or something like that. And then those would be various anti-realist positions you could take, but you don't have to take any of those specific positions. Here I am making more anti-realism videos than anyone I know of, and I don't endorse any of those views. So it's possible to do so.
Or emotivism. Now, those all have different nuances, but I'm going to get these real short and sweet. And this view is subjective.
By the way, there is error theory too, so there is that.
This whole something about truth. The truth is, where a more realist think that truth can be objective, like mathematical truths, subjectivist thinks that truth is contingent purely upon the individual, or individuals' beliefs or perception of their feelings, or the culture itself. So truth is true if it coheres with a person's beliefs and feelings. Say that one more time. A statement is true if it coheres with a person's or group's beliefs or feelings. There's no
pretty good characterization. If it coheres with their beliefs or feelings, it's a pretty good way of characterizing it. I've seen people characterize it in ways that are a lot more objectionable than this. So I'm a little puzzled by the text on the screen because it says subjectivism, relativism, non-cognitivism, emotivism. And then it says that, which looks like a cognitivist thing, not a non-cognitivist or emotivist position. So I don't know if there's some other mistake that's going to happen here, but so far this sounds okay.
No external objective reality to which beliefs must correspond, as subjectivists would say that. Therefore, moral subjectivism in the realm of ethics is on individual or collective preferences, feelings, or beliefs. So when a subjectivist says raping is wrong, they mean something like, I disapprove of raping. They might say, if they're relativists, they'd say, my culture disapproves of raping. And that's subjectivism. Emotivism, which Alex Connor mentions in this video and other places many, many, many times I've heard him say, that was developed in the 20th century. So it's a brand new phenomenon.
Yeah. So Sapir says subjectivism and relativism are being conflated. I'm not sure that they are. These terms are used so inconsistently among philosophers and among lay people. And sometimes, a lot of times, among people that are not professional philosophers, they don't really use them in they're not really using them in any specific technical sense. So, people will use the term subjective to mean like from a given point of view. And that's not really related to subjective as a metaethical concept. So subjective, I tend to prefer using the term to refer to individual relativism. So subjectivism, the way I use the term, tends to refer to the view that moral claims are true or false relative to the standards of individuals. So it's a type of relativism that locates the truth of moral claims in what individuals have to say. So that's one way of using subjective. Sometimes people use subjective seemingly to mean something like stance-dependent views, but then that would be consistent with certain types of constructivism and stuff like that. And then sometimes they use it to mean something more or less synonymous with relativism. And then they might even use it in like some fourth way or some fifth way. There are a variety of different ways. And then relativism, I tend to prefer to conserve that for any view which indexes the truth status of moral claims to more than one possible standard. So that is actually technically consistent with realism. So if you're using just a lot of times relativism is presented as a type of anti-realism. It's not technically a type of anti-realism because it's possible to be a realist and a relativist. Although I've pretty much never heard of anybody that's a realist and a relativist. That realism concerns, are the moral facts stance dependent or stance independent? Relativism concerns, is the truth status of the moral claim indexed or non-indexed? They're not technically identical to one another. They're orthogonal. It's just that in practice, most people that are going to index moral claims are going to treat them, they're going to index them to stances. So they're going to be stance dependent, but they don't have to. It's not like a logically necessary feature of relativism that the moral facts in question are stance dependent. So they're technically distinct. This is a point Richard Joyce has made. Probably other people have made it. It's a technical distinction. It doesn't really matter very much in practice. Grant says that's a bad definition. That seems like a bad definition of relativism, particularly. I don't know that it is. I'm kind of fine with it. I mean, I prefer the indexing way of defining relativism, but some people are going to treat it as moral facts or depend on your culture or your individual standards or something like that. Yeah, digital analysis says, who creates definitions? The objective reality. Yeah, definitions are obviously, constructed and they're pliable and they change over time and people use them in different ways in different contexts. There's not like a correct definition. There's just what we can get people to agree to. Sully has some interesting things to say about math. I'm not going to deviate too much to talk about those, but I appreciate them. Digital Gnosis says, I think realism is really just rhetorical. I like the reference to really with my recent blog post, which I might get a chance to talk to. I doubt it. I'm 20 minutes in and I've done like 2 minutes of clips. Yeah, so I think so too. I have an old blog post back from probably a couple years ago now talking about like the labels and my objections to the labels realism and anti-realism. And I've even encountered people that have said things like, well, if you're an anti-realist, you think morality isn't real. It's ridiculous. That's not true. So yeah, I don't like these labels. We need to change them. Well, Coffee Smug says, isn't subjectivism the same as individual relativism? That's how I use the term, but not everybody uses it that way. So moral truths are relative to subjects or subjects' attitudes or something like that. So that's how I tend to use it. But again, there's not total conformity in how people use these. Yeah, Skeptic Code says you need to fix your internet connection because it's choppy on every video I watch from you. So I get this thing where the camera freezes and for a few seconds every once in a while. It went away for a while. It came back. I do not know how to fix it. I just don't know how to fix it. It happens in StreamYard. I don't have another good service that I'm used to using, and I don't know how to fix it. So if someone wants to shoot me an email and walk through, I've emailed StreamYard. They give me useless instructions. They say things like check your internet connection. So you're saying here you need to fix your internet connection. My internet connection is perfectly fine. I could go on a Zoom call with 50 people and it's going to work. I can have 80 windows open. I could download things super fast. I could upload things fast. I have no problem with my internet connection. It's specifically StreamYard. In fact, you might think it's got to be your webcam. No, because like my webcam on Zoom doesn't freeze up. It just doesn't do it. It's only StreamYard that does it. I have tried it in different browsers. It still happens in different browsers. It's just StreamYard. So I don't know what the issue is. I don't know why StreamYard is having this problem. So I don't know. Maybe I need to use something other than StreamYard because I am a bit tired of it. All right, let's have a look. Okay, lots of people talking to each other. Well, I'm not going to get too much into these. Well, let's play a bit more and see if there's anything to comment on here. But then I want to get to that other clip.
Emotivism was developed in the 20th century by philosophers, atheists like A.J. Ayer, Charles Stevenson, and that was influenced by something called the logical positivist movement. A logical positivism, particularly popular in the 1920s, was a belief that all real truth is scientifically proven. If it can't be demonstrated scientifically, it's not true, which means it's not real, which means issues about God and ethics are nonsense statements. They don't exist because you can't prove that it's wrong to rape. You can't prove that in a scientific laboratory. Therefore, that statement means nothing. All it means is you have a feeling. You just said a feeling.
Yeah, he's going through a pretty standard characterization of logical positivism and emotivism. We don't need to review that. There it goes freezing again. Why does it freeze? I don't know. Sapir says, Lance, maybe you could try a different streaming service. Yeah, what would you recommend? I don't know what to use. So if you can give me recommendations, and if you're watching this video later and you have recommendations, please put them in the comments. Because if I could find something good, especially if I could get like a free trial and try something else out, I'll try it. There was one that I used with Aaron Rabinowitz from Embrace the Void. He used a different service, and I kind of like the interface there. So maybe I'll shoot him an email and ask about that and see what that, I can't remember what that service was, but yeah, I'm going to have to give something else a shot because I've tried 2 or 3 other like browser type things with video on them and they work fine. It's just StreamYard. So StreamYard, if you're hearing this, you got to get this fixed because I'm like paying for StreamYard and it's not working. So it's pissing me off. It's not good. So Digital Gnosis says, it's not StreamYard though, right? It's your camera that's all messed up. Nope, nothing wrong with my camera. In fact, I got a different camera. The other camera is right over there. It does it with both cameras. It doesn't matter which camera it is. It doesn't matter which port it's plugged into. I'm plugged straight into an Ethernet. I am not on Wi-Fi. I'll do a speed check right now. So it's doing it on the other screen. So I'll show you that. It's not my internet speed. It's something with StreamYard. So it doesn't matter which camera I use. Okay, I'll give some examples. So if I'm on a Zoom call, I've used like, what is it, Weebly or something? What other video stuff have I used? I've used other video stuff. Doesn't happen on those. So my download speed right now, 940 megabytes a second. Upload is looking like it's about 40 megabytes a second. It's pretty stable. I don't have my internet going on and off, and yeah, its upload is 40.5. So yeah, I don't know what other data would be useful for this, but the internet connection is good. So I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why it's freezing. Nope. This happens. So I'm using the Brave browser, but this happens in Chrome, Firefox, and Edge. So it doesn't matter what the browser is. So nope, it's not the browser, and it's not my internet connection, and it's not the webcam because it happens with different webcams. So it's none of those, and it's not like the specific like port because I popped it into 2 or 3 different ones. Still does it. So Yeah, everyone thinks it's going to be some easy fix, like you just use a different browser. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which browser. Yeah, hardware, but how would it be like? Oh, and this is a new computer, so it's a different camera and a different computer. So why would it still be happening? And Digital says, have you tried different browsers? Yes, I have. 4 different browsers. It does this in all of them. Also, by the way, it does not do it on my laptop in any of the browsers. So I could go on StreamYard and this won't happen on the laptop. So I don't know what's going on. Don't know. What OS? I'm on Windows 11. So Linux device drivers. What do you think would happen if I booted this up in Linux and tried stuff? You think it would just not be an issue? It wouldn't surprise me. So Nathan, if you want to talk about that, I'm happy to talk about that. I do have a couple people that have been trying to get me on Linux, so maybe I'll just give it a shot. If I have to start streaming on Linux specifically, I'm cool with that. All right, we got we got a fun post here. I'll just put it up here. Deus Ex Nihilo says, "Hello, atheists. If you can't solve all philosophical problems without atheist worldview, then your atheistic worldview is false." Well, I don't really do a lot of videos on atheism, so I don't know why you're bringing that up here. i7. Yeah, I don't know the specifics, but I could 1 second. Let me tell you the specs. Not right now. Wish I could post specifics here. Yeah, so here, one moment. It's going to let me paste. Let me copy and paste. Yeah, it's being uncooperative. What the freak? Okay, there's the processor. I don't know if that's an issue. And what other information do you need? Here's the graphics card. The graphics card is yeah, as far as what the issue is that sporadically, it's seemingly randomly, the video just freezes for a few seconds. I'm assuming the audio freezes with it, but I don't know. Yeah, Sapir says, "What about all the other obvious stuff you might not have thought of?" I don't know because I haven't thought of it. And Digital says, "Could you try updating your device drivers?" Sure. How do I do that? I don't know what I do. I'm not confident with this stuff. So, Nathan, why don't we talk about this after the stream if you're up for it? If not today, maybe you'll be too sleepy or something. But if you want to walk me through some troubleshooting stuff, that'd be great. Are you cool with doing that? It's like trying to fix this in the middle of the stream seems a little goofy. Unless people are cool with it, I don't know. Coffee Smug says Lance's connection hardware issues are stance independently bad. Yeah, maybe there's just some weird software running that's causing a problem. What are your best guesses about what the issue is? Because I really don't know. Start closing random crap. Could it be something as dumb as like Flux? Can that actually interfere with stuff? Or maybe I just have could it just be too many browser windows open? Let's see how many I have open. 17? That doesn't seem like that many. I don't know. There's a lot of crap running on here. Yeah, try running the video. Okay, so the last time I tried changing the video quality, it put me out of sync, like my audio. So Grant says, is it just a video or is other stuff freezing? I don't know. When it freezes, you could tell me if when the video is frozen, can you hear me talking? Because sometimes I'm still talking. I usually notice it and stop talking. This says, call a suspicious tech support. I'm not going to call anybody suspicious. Yeah, Tony says, I'm wondering if this is network-wide issue or just local to your computer. I think it's like specific to the computer. I don't know what the issue is. Maybe it's something I'm using on here. There's like a bazillion processes currently running. So maybe it's something specific. Huh. I don't even know what half of these things are. This is an inside joke from Discord. I don't know what it means. So, but Saphir says, Lance, have you tried putting body armor on your computer? I have. It's got a full suit of plate armor actually, and yeah, it doesn't really help. Yeah. So Zygnomorph says outside chance CPU overheats and throttles speed. Nope, it's not the heat. So I have a program running that tells me the speed. Sorry, that's not the speed. The heat. Um, huh. So I'm getting an error message from this, but it's 33C right now for the GPU. Yeah, it's not everything is nice and cool. So nothing is overheating here. I'm not seeing temperature on the CPU. I don't know why it's not telling me that. I don't know. Probably doing something stupid and wrong. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. That's enough of that stuff. We'll go over it. I'll try to figure it out because it's really, really bothering me, but I don't want to just stop streaming and I can't figure it out. So what can I do?
That's all that means. Subjectivists might say this. We'll use raping.
Yeah, we don't need to go through all these. Let's look at the other quote because remember, I was going through these comments about how I was saying, it looks like he's saying everyone's a realist, and then he said in his response, one, he wasn't really saying that, at least with respect to some of his remarks, and then he disagrees with me about the current state of the evidence. This defrag, this is a brand new computer, and I was told you don't do you defrag if it's a solid state drive? What I don't know that's something that would be helpful to do. There we go with the freeze. So the millions of processes that I closed didn't stop the freezing. And I should have said something while I was going. All right, let me make some notes on what people are asking me to do. I don't see how any of these are going to help me. This is silly stuff. Cat Minerva says, is this the infamous Lance? Yeah, the infamous Lance on my infamously shitty, dysfunctional webcam. Yeah, this is funny. Severe says, the hilarious thing is I don't think it happened one time when Lance had the video feed paused trying to troubleshoot. Yeah, it only happens if I'm actually doing stuff. So Tony says that they can contact me later. That would be wonderful. Yeah, if you could walk me through some options here, then yeah, if I could get this fixed, I would absolutely love to get it fixed. It would be better for all of you. I'm sure you're all annoyed when I just randomly have to freeze. Zictomorph says you could look at the application log for an error when it happens. What application log? What are you talking about? How would I find that? Okay. So I'll talk to Tony later. We'll see if we can get it figured out. Well, I'll try to troubleshoot it and try to get it done this week. Okay. Let's get back to the video. Where were we at? Where is the video? Here it is. All right. So here's the other comment he had made. And
there are multiple
I'll take it just a few seconds before because I, set this up like just right at the moment he starts saying it. So I'll take it back a few seconds. All right. Back to the show. We'll fix it later. It's going to freeze up for this stream. We'll deal with it another time. Okay. Oh, Sapir. Well, Sapir, we can't keep dealing with this now. We got to get back to the show. Okay. Sapir says, "Wait, Lance, did you say it only happens when you're actually doing stuff? It maybe that's happening. Yeah, like if I pause the videos, it doesn't happen. Maybe it's only happening when I'm streaming videos. No, 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 no. Because I've had conversations with people, and I'm not streaming a video, and it still happens anyway. So yeah, no, it just freezes on its own. Deus Ex is punishment for the moral realist gods. Yeah, there could be punishment. Old graphics drivers. It's certainly a possibility that there's a driver issue. Let's see. I could check that. I opened up the whatever NVIDIA app and it just says updating right when I opened it. So could it be that? Let's see. Drivers. Yeah. I got to download a new driver. Let's download it right now. Could it be the graphics drivers? Could that be accounting for things? Because if it's just that and I just didn't update it for the past month, then whatever. Then I'm just real dumb. All right, installing now. Oh yeah, it says the driver was from December 5th. So hey, isn't that about the time this started up again? I wonder if it's that. Have to reboot. I don't think I want to reboot right now, right? Because that'll have to end this stream. So we'll just try later. And we will know if I do another stream. I'll probably have to stop and have dinner anyway. Maybe I'll stream again tonight. Probably not though. No, I'm not going to do it again tonight. But the next time I stream, we'll find out. So maybe that'll solve the problem. Okay. All right. Well, it's installing the new driver. It's probably going to flip out. It usually does, like in the middle of me talking and stuff. But anyway, let's keep going with the quote here. We'll see what happens.
And so when a person says something is wrong, the behavior, I'm giving a quality to that behavior that it is. So there are multiple reasons why. One, of course, is it fails to recognize how virtually all humans in recorded history have used moral discussions,
Yeah. All humans in recorded history. So that sounds like a strong empirical claim. All people in recorded history. Let's take it back
It
and listen
fails to recognize how virtually all humans in recorded history.
So it fails to this emotivism, subjectivism. They fail to recognize. Oh, oh no, am I back? Is it still going? I don't even know. Let me know if I'm here. Okay, cool. People say I'm back. But the video went black. It was because whatever I told you the once you update the drivers, it does something funky. Refresh this. Okay. Man, what a mess of a stream this has been. I'm having fun. I hope you are. All right, so we'll bring it back. Let's bring it back to this. Okay, so one person is saying we killed Lance, and then the other saying you're there. So I'm confused. Tony says updating GPU drivers is not a good idea. Screw it. I'm doing it live. I don't care. All right. What a mess of a stream this is. This is ridiculous. Okay, I don't even care at this point. Anybody watching this later is going to go, what the hell is this? I want some meta ethics, and they're just talking about the camera freezing. Whatever. This is as Nathan is always talking about his low quality content. So you get shit like whatever I'm doing here, and then you have videos like Majesty of Reason where it's like so organized and awesome. Oh boy. Okay. So let's get back to the damn quote. I'm done with talking about StreamYard. Okay.
Reasons why emotivism and subjectivism, whatever, fails. One, of course, is it fails to recognize how virtually all humans in recorded history have used moral discussions, moral.
Okay. So if you want to make a claim about how virtually all humans in recorded history have used moral discourse, that's an empirical claim, and I would want to see some empirical evidence to support that claim. I don't think he presents any here. So there is empirical research on this, and it does not support the claim that almost all human beings in recorded history have not used moral discourse in a way that fits with subjectivism or non-cognitivism or emotivism in particular. It's just not. There's not compelling empirical data that would say, yep, we can decisively say people don't speak like subjectivists or they don't speak like non-cognitivists. That looks like an empirical claim. If that's true, what is this based on? So, what we have here are claims about how everyone in history has thought. These are empirical claims. These are historical claims. They're claims about historical claims about like what people thought in the past. So it's both a historical claim and a psychological claim. Where's the evidence for that? I'd love to see what the evidence for that is supposed to be. So, yeah. I've sometimes seen people like Bentham's Bulldog, like Matthew, has said stuff like it's his like he'll say, "Oh, it seems to me that people." Okay, well, it seems to you. Do we do psychology on our seemings too? Like it's one thing for Matthew and other people to make philosophical appeals and like to their intuitions for traditionally philosophical claims, like that moral realism is true. It's quite another to say I have an intuition that people think a particular way. Uh, okay, well, imagine scientists doing this for like what the elements are or what the outcome of a scientific experiment is. It seems to me that we're going to get this outcome. No, there's a reason we do experiments. There's a reason we do research, because how things seem to us is not a particularly good guide to figuring out how things work in practice. So if you want to make claims about human psychology and in the history of human thought, there's got to be some substantive evidence there, or those claims are really questionable. And it just seems to me like he's making very questionable empirical claims and doesn't really present any evidence for them. Okay, so that's one video. What else do we have? Let's see. Why don't I ask you what you would like me to go over? So I got a few options here. I have a Matt Walsh video. In fact, I have two Matt Walsh videos. One of them was real popular when I did a review of a Matt Walsh video on metaethics. And I promise it's Matt Walsh, but he's talking about metaethics. So what what can I say? He's talking about metaethics, so it's I could review it. I have this other one, the Barian Remnant, which is called "How Can We Respond to Relativism." I saw about 5 minutes of it, and it is in fact talking about moral relativism. So potentially I could review that, but I don't really know what's in it. So it could be amazing. It could be I could just go, I agree with that, or it could be awful. Who knows? And then I have the video from Philosophunculasts, which is a direct response to me. So we've got Matt Walsh, random video on relativism, Philosophunculasts responding to me. What are we going to vote for? Hey, I can actually do a poll in the video. So let's do that. Let's do a poll for my terrible stream. All right. Start a poll. One moment. Type in. Yeah, watch. I'm going to start reviewing this. Wait, did the freezing stop? There hasn't been any freezing in a while, right? Okay. Okay. There, we still got freezing. So we'll have to reboot this thing. All right. So I'm going to throw up that poll. I'll be back in like a minute. I'm just going to, take a quick break. All right. Let's see. How is the voting going? I've got 11 votes. Oh, it was just a minute ago. We'll keep it open, but it looks like Philosophunculus is winning. If you want to see me review something else, get in there and vote. If you want to add to the pile for the Philosophunculus, then you could do that. So if you don't know, I don't know when it was, like a week or two ago, I reviewed a Philosophunculus video. Then he did a video responding. We ended up having a discussion, but then we barely talked about ethics. So we had a discussion. Then he posted a response. So there's been at least 3 videos of interaction. And then I could go and respond to that video. It looks like that one's going to win. So I'll keep it open until I get, let's say, 2 more votes. I got to get 2 more votes. Otherwise, I'm not doing any of them. There. That's my threat. If more of you don't vote, I won't do any of them. Ha 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 ha. So you're going to have to go in there and vote. That was the worst fake laugh ever. All right. I got 12 votes, 13 votes. Well, that's not enough in principle to really fix the problem. To change it, like, couldn't potentially change it. Okay. We got 14 votes. Let's see if we could do 15. Let's do it. Oh, wow. Matt Walsh and the random relativism video are tied. I guess random relativism video doesn't really sell it very much, does it? Okay. That's good enough for me. 15 votes. Oh, it was 15-14. It was going up and down. We'll end it there. Oh, we got to 16. All right. So it wasn't going to change the outcome there and probably. So Philosophunculus wins. So let's do it. Won't be able to finish because I'll probably have to go do dinner at some point, but let's see where we can get with this. I've never done like a democratic election for this kind of thing. Oh, that's funny. Check this out. Is it showing it? Never mind. Doesn't matter then. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it was showing in recommended videos this stream on his video, which I thought was really funny. So there's a weird inception. Hey, what if I open up my video and I review myself reviewing myself? Will that destroy reality? Because it ended up being a video of me reviewing myself. I don't know what happened. What would actually happen if I started playing this video in the stream? It'd just be this a few seconds behind, right? Oh, I get really confused. Okay. Whatever. All right. Are we ready to go? Let's do it. His background is way cooler than mine. What is that? It's like that weird reddish orange thing in the back. Okay, let's get going. I'm procrastinating.
Friends, let's talk about people talking about me, talking about philosophy. In this edition of Comments on Comments, we're going to be pretty much talking exclusively about Lance Independent. He was nice enough to offer a critique of a video I did on an objective argument for morality that was embedded kind of in a video attempting to demonstrate how moral arguments for the existence of God might fail. And then he and I also did a little live thing where we talked a lot about philosophy, academic philosophy, YouTube philosophy, but didn't ever really touch on much philosophical theory. So those are the things I'm going to talk about. If you are interested, stick around. If not, go watch the best global voice auditions. It gets wild. And the judges from around the globe are making spectacular fashion choices. First, I want to look at Lance's critique of my argument for an account of objective morality without God. If you watch the video, I present a kind of neo-Kantian constructivist account of what morality could look like even if God isn't in the picture. Lance and I believe, have a common subscriber who may have recommended the video to him, and he was nice enough to do a live stream where he watched chunks of the video and analyzed it while engaging with folks in his chat. There are a few reasons I would strongly encourage people to go check out this video and the rest of Lance's stuff. First, he's a super nice guy, and he's talking about really cool, interesting things at a pretty damn high level. Second, go look at the live stream of him critiquing my video. It'll give you a sense of what it's like to present an argument in academia, because the criticism you're going to get there is way different than what happens in kind of YouTube comment sections. People will ask you to justify everything, and they will critique everything. And if there is a disagreement to have, they will find it. Lance did a really great job of that. And it leads to the third reason why you should go watch the video. Every criticism he made was justified. Now, I don't think all of his criticisms are a reflection of the weakness of my position, but I think all of them are a reflection of the weakness of my presentation of that position, explanation of that position, or looseness of the language I used when explaining that position. I let myself off the hook a little bit because my goal in presenting that video just to get people to think, to try to make philosophy accessible to people who haven't done it. Some of the criticism is just a result of that. The last reason I'd encourage people to go check it out is watch the chat. It gives you a little bit of an idea of what being in a graduate student office in a philosophy department might be like. Lots of people with lots of confidence, lots of enthusiasm, excited to talk about and criticize the positions that they're confronting. So what I'm going to do is
By the way, you see the last comment. He's talking about you, all of you in the chat. I think that's cool. Yeah, I'm kind of nodding along like, yeah, but I'd already listened to this, so I already know what he had to say. So I already knew this started off with a very rave review of me as an interlocutor. He does this. He does a really good job of talking up the person that he's engaged with. And there's something very disarming about that. Like it would be hard at this point if he goes on to say, and this third thing Lance says is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Lance is a total idiot. Like at this point, he's talked me up so much that even if he said that, I'd be like, well, they kind of balance out. You get better interactions, I think, if you're friendly to people. So, one thing I'll note, he defends a moral realist account, and look how well we get along. And I say this in spite of the fact that oftentimes there's so much. Sometimes people are a little hostile, they're a little passive aggressive, they're rude. It's a whole different ball game. When that's a very outdated idiom, but whatever. When you're engaged with some people that are proponents of different philosophical views, because sometimes they're quite nasty about it, or are hostile or aggressive, or they'll insult you, or they'll imply you're stupid or bad, or a psychopath or whatever. And it's so refreshing to engage with someone that disagrees with me that can be friendly about it. You don't have to talk me up this much. I wouldn't care that much if a video started by saying, hey, I think Lance is incorrect about literally every position he takes on every philosophical matter. And I'm going to systematically show why he's wrong about everything. If someone just did that and then proceeded to offer a critique of everything, I'd be fine with that. It would be wonderful just to get that kind of attention and engagement. I want to engage with people that disagree with me, but I don't know why people have to do all this posturing. And I know I do a bit of it sometimes. I get a little sassy, I get a little sarcastic, I get a little snarky at times. And so if I'm doing too much of it and I'm being a bit of a jerk towards realists or proponents of qualia or phenomenal consciousness or free will or whatever, feel free to reel me in and say, hey, dial it back. I have to make a conscious effort not to get that way sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, Coffee Smoke said realists and anti-realists can get along. Yeah, they absolutely can. And of course, this may be something about my own style and presentation. Maybe I speak in a way that comes off as too confident. Maybe I am too confident. There might be something that I'm saying or doing that's setting off realists, because certainly realists and anti-realists outside of conversations and interactions I have with them, I'm not going to base all my judgments of how realists treat anti-realists based off just my interactions, because lots of realists and anti-realists get along just fine. People work together in philosophy departments, they're friends. It's usually not an issue, but at least I'm in internet debate spaces a lot, not so much at academic conferences. And at academic conferences, I don't know how people are, because I don't go to a lot of philosophy conferences. All right. Yeah, Spear says, I like this guy. It was fun to Yeah, I liked just talking about academia. We had a bit of a conversation about that, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Coffee Smug says, this guy's not hostile enough, need more insults. Nathan's making a bit of a shot here. I too am always right. And even if shown wrong, it's just because I wasn't clear enough. Yeah, I probably mentioned this before, but I really like what Hillary Putnam had to say. So Hillary Putnam came to Tufts this was back in, it must have been 2012 or 2013 when I was there. I was only there a couple of years for grad school. And Hillary Putnam came and gave a talk. He'd come in with a big old stack of papers and was just like, I'm just going to talk about what I'm working on. And he had a couple really funny responses, but one of them that's similar to Nathan's response here, who says, I too am always right. Even if shown wrong, it's just because it wasn't clear enough. So Putnam, someone said, well, wouldn't this be a counterexample to the claim that you're making? And they present the person in the audience proceeded to present a counterexample. And Putnam said something like, well, I couldn't have meant what you said because I didn't intend for my position to be subject to counterexamples. So like, obviously he was being silly on purpose. The idea being, hey, I'm going to retroactively change what my position would be so that it's not subject to your counterexample. So no, my position is definitely correct because it's a feature of my position that it isn't subject to counterexamples. So if you come up with one, then it wasn't my position after all. I'm giving myself infinite license to retcon my own position. I mean, he was obviously joking, but I thought it was just a really clever way of just being a smart ass with responding. But my favorite response that he gave to somebody, and I don't know how old Hillary Putnam was at the time. He's passed away since then, but late 70s, early 80s, something like that. Let's just look it up. Why not? 2016 at 89. Oh, wow. Yeah, so he was like 85 or 84. And so this is relevant because somebody asked him a question like, in your paper in 1970 something, it was a paper from decades beforehand. They said, hey, well, isn't your current position inconsistent with what you said in this paper? And it was like a paper from the 1970s. And he said something like, I don't know. I'm not a Putnam scholar. And I thought it was awesome too, because like obviously he's not a scholar of his own work, but he had the best like one-liner philosopher jokes. I don't have good delivery here. His delivery was phenomenal. He was hilarious and a lot of fun. It's really a blast to get to see philosophers in person. It was probably one of the things I liked most about grad school is getting to go to those talks and get to see philosophers give talks and get to hang out with them and talk to them. And I met a lot of cool people that way. It was great. Random comments from the audience before we continue. Nathan says, I managed to quit philosophy after reading Wittgenstein, yet here I am confused about words I use every day again. Yeah, I feel that way a lot. All right. Zictamore says we need a shorthand for a philosophunculist. Yeah, I don't know what to call them other than like philofunk. I don't know. Philofunk sounds good to me. What is philosophunk? Is that a reference to something? What does it mean? Okay, I don't know, but let's get on with the video. So he talked me up a bit. Let's see where things go. And he talked up the audience here. So they're all of you now, all of you that I'm currently talking to. Well, maybe some of you were here, some of you weren't when we were having a conversation before, or when I was reviewing his video. He's actually referencing like the chat here, and a lot of you are returning chat. It's kind of cool that you're now featured in someone else's video, right? I think it's cool.
Introduce and explain a few concepts that Lance's critique illustrated that I did not explain well enough in the original video. And then we'll watch a few clips, and hopefully armed with these new explanations and concepts, we can respond to his critiques, maybe defend my position a little bit, and also maybe illustrate where his and my disagreements really lie. So the first things I want to clarify are, one, I'm not even sure if I need to or want to commit to moral realism. All I want to commit to is the idea that there are moral facts that are stance independent. Now, that might just be the definition of moral realism, but more or less, I want to say there are claims we can make that are right and wrong, true and false, have a truth value, and that truth value does not change depending on the particular subjective preferences of the people involved.
Yeah, that's what I mean by realism. So in that respect, it would appear that he is a moral realist. I mean, that was one concern people would have. Like if you bring up constructivist positions, like, are they actually realist positions? I'm not convinced Kant was a moral realist or that constructivists are moral realists. If up against a wall, or if I was cornered and I had to decide, I would say, yeah, constructivist positions don't look like realism to me. They look closer to something like relation designating accounts, or like ideal observer theory, something like that. And they look more like some type of anti-realist stance dependent cognitivist account than they look like some type of realist account. But if he considers his particular constructivist view a realist view, okay, then I'll take him at his word. It's a realist view. But yeah, so he's expressing uncertainty here about whether his position is a realist position, but it is a stance independent position. Okay, well, by realism, I just mean the view that they're stance independent moral facts. So that would make his view realist the way I'm using the term. And that's the way most people in contemporary analytic philosophy appear to be using the term. There are a few holdouts that use a more minimalist version. I think Jeffrey Sayer McCord is just that there are moral truths. And, it'd be something like cognitivism and like some thesis about there being at least some moral facts. But that would include some types of relativism and stuff that people these days, most people wouldn't include. So people don't always use the term the same way. And then there's more robust conceptions of realism that bake in like epistemic features and other sorts of things. So, I'm using a pretty conventional characterization of realism.
Whether you like chocolate or vanilla, whether you like sushi or steak, what your particular preferences are irrelevant to the truth value of the sorts of moral claims that I'm advocating are true. The second thing I want to say, if we want to talk about them as being real, the only thing I really care about is they are considered as real as anything else. Their truth value and whatever obligation we have to the truth is the same as a statement like 2 + 2 = 4, or gravity affects middle-sized physical objects in such a way that they fall at approximately 9.8 meters per second. You can pick whichever one of those you like better. There are moral claims that we can make that are just as truthy and just as justified as those other claims. And we should have the same commitment to their truthiness and justification that we do to statements like 2 + 2 = 4 or gravity works X way.
Yeah, so people make these sorts of comparisons, but if you're not a realist about those, this isn't going to get you very far. But I think the idea is that presumptively people are going to be some type of realist in the sense of thinking that they're stance independent facts about math or science or something like that. So this is a common enough comparison that I don't see a big issue with it.
Third, and it's a topic that's going to come up a bunch, is that I conceive of value as being a property. To borrow an example that someone used in the comment section of Lance's video, firewood is valuable because firewood has the properties that allow it to satisfy a desire or a want or a need or fulfill an inclination, intention, or goal that someone has.
So this is going to be a problem. So this idea of value as a property, and then he says, has the property such that the valuable thing could satisfy some rationally justifiable desires of persons. So there's going to be some problems here, and I don't think he ever in this video gets into this idea of rationally justifiable, like what that would mean. But insofar as objects have properties, it's a little weird to say that the object has the property that it could satisfy desires, because let's set aside rationally justifiable and let's just talk about let's just talk about objects having properties that could satisfy desires. Well, what exactly are these properties? So in principle, any characteristics that any object has could satisfy some hypothetical desire associated with that property, whatever that property would be. So you could take something like, do you desire lava? I don't. I might want to look at it. But if there's like a lava being that wants to eat lava or requires heat, it could desire that in a way that you wouldn't. Or take something that, you or I wouldn't be able to drink, some type of acid or boiling water. If there was an organism with a very different biology than us, that could be a primary means of sustenance for it, and it would satisfy its desires to have it. Someone could just desire to collect weird stuff. So, some being could desire to collect all radioactive substance or all spiky things or all purple things. So whatever property something has, in principle, a being could have a desire to obtain that thing or use that thing or something in some way, interact with the object in such a way that its desires would be fulfilled by the properties that thing has. So it would seem like anything has an infinite number of conditional desire satisfying property. So in other words, another way to put it would be any of the properties that anything has could in principle satisfy and fail to satisfy an infinite number of hypothetical desires and absences of desires accordingly. What is he even talking about here? So how would that mean that the thing I don't know what he's saying here. It's very confusing. So if we go out in the world and we say that things have properties, like descriptive properties, like here's a phone, it has a certain type of hardness, it has a certain texture, and we could go through and we could describe objects, carrots, tables, trees, chairs, planets, galaxies, different types of elements. Here's a chunk of aluminum, here's a chunk of radium, here's argon, xenon, titanium, whatever it would be. They all have different properties, right? Properties that we could describe in scientific terms and in various sorts of descriptive terms. Like they have, things have viscosities and hardnesses and light refractive abilities. So there's all these properties. Now, those properties could, in principle, be relevant to the satisfaction of a potentially infinite list of possible desires and could thwart an infinite list of possible desires. So what would it even mean to, how would we distinguish anything as having these particular properties? Like whatever the properties are, they could satisfy desires, they could fail to satisfy desires. We'd have to look at the desires themselves. So it's not like there's anything inherent in the objects that would indicate whether they are valuable or not, because everything would be of potential value or disvalue to an infinite number of possible desires. So this wouldn't allow us to distinguish anything in any sort of meaningful way. Now, if we start putting in notions like rationally justifiable, then he might be smuggling in normative considerations that I wouldn't have granted from the outset. So I'd start worrying about question begging types of assumptions, like, if rationally justifiable is baking in normative assumptions, and the whole dispute here is something like normative realism, not just moral realism, then I might not get on board with saying, okay, well, some desires are rationally justifiable and some desires aren't. I, I don't think that way at all. So in terms of like terminal goals or desires, I don't think any of them are rationally justifiable or not rationally justifiable. This may be one of our primary matters of contention. I think it's, I don't want to go so far as to say it's like a category mistake, but it's something like that to talk about whether a desire is rational or not. Desires I just take to be descriptive facts about the goals or motivations that one or another being has. They're not subject to being correct or incorrect. If, for instance, scientists created an artificial intelligence, they could program it to have any number of potential desires. They could program it to want to convert all matter in the universe into peanut butter, which I might get on board with because I love peanut butter. It could just want to count prime numbers or something. It could want to paint everything purple. I don't think there are correct or incorrect desires. I don't even know what that would mean. What would that mean? In principle, how could a desire be correct or incorrect? To me, that would be like talking about whether a color is correct or incorrect. Like blue is wrong. What would that mean? Or some other descriptive fact, like the crystal formation capacities of quartz is incorrect. What? Well, it makes sense. Like these are just descriptive facts. They can't be like conditional on it being a fact. It can't be correct or incorrect in some normative sense. It's just a descriptive fact. What would that even mean? So I'm going to have some problems with this idea of rationally justifiable, and I don't think he ever really gets into that. If I'm wrong about that, and he does bring up this and address it at some point, then I'm wrong. But this might also be something to flag as something for us to discuss when I feel like at this point it's inevitable we're going to have another discussion where we talk about ethics. But yeah, I'm going to have big issues with this.
Regardless of whether or not actually using the firewood. So I'm going to say a stack of firewood outside has value because there are people who are cold who potentially could use that firewood to satisfy their desire.
So does saying it have value mean that it is of potential use to people that exist, or is it a potential use to like independent of whether there are currently people that exist or not? I think he might go on to talk about this later, but like if like before people existed, did firewood have value? Like let's say just dry wood, then no one would have like specifically set aside wood for fires before people existed. But when there was dry wood lying around, would we say it had value because people could use it for fire, but people don't exist, so there's nobody there to use it? Or does it only acquire value in virtue of its potential actual use rather than its like potential hypothetical use? I don't know. Maybe he addresses this.
Fire. And for some people, this seems weird, but I don't think it's any weirder than talking about something like buoyancy. And I use that example because we say something's buoyant if it floats. And we say it's a property of the piece of wood or cork or paperclip that it will float, but not all.
Right. So let's say if something's buoyant, that doesn't mean that it's currently floating. It's just the sort of thing that if you put it under the right kinds of conditions, it would float. But then if we're going to say, okay, well, a thing is valuable in the sense that under some specifiable set of conditions, it would be valued by someone, then my point here would just be that literally everything is valuable in that respect. Literally anything could be valued by some agent in principle. Now, then if the response would be, but not everything can be rationally justifiable. Not everything that could be valued in a sense that's rationally justifiable. Okay, then we're gonna have to talk about that.
All buoyant things will float the same way in the same liquids. Some of them will float in honey, but won't float in water. But we don't say that buoyancy is stance dependent because no one's perspective changes the fact as to whether or not the paperclip floats or sinks. What changes the buoyancy is the circumstance in which the thing is put. And that's the way I think of value. The firewood is valuable because it has the properties that allow it to satisfy a rational desire of some person. I don't think we only can think of value as an action. The fact that someone isn't currently consciously valuing something doesn't eradicate its value, given my view. Lastly,
Yeah, I'm still puzzled by what he means by the thing having value. Like, why couldn't we just say this thing could be valued? Like, if a thing is if something's water, then it could be valued by a being that could benefit from using water. If something is like sharp, it could be valued by a being that needs a sharp tool to use. It to me, it's a little weird to speak of these things having like the property of being valuable. What does it mean to say they have the property? Is that like a metaphysical claim? What does that mean? I still find that really weird. It's a bit like I'm thinking of other terms you could use, like, objects have the property of being like an object is useful if it could be used in a way that would be conducive to the ends of some agent or other. Okay, then everything is useful. Like something could be useful because someone could say, but what about, and then they stipulate some really bizarre object, like it's really weirdly shaped. It couldn't be picked up. Like, let's say it's an object bigger than multiple galaxies and you couldn't pick it up or something. So it would be useful for me to be able to say, hey, look at that object over there that's bigger than multiple galaxies and you can't pick it up. That object is useful for illustrating some concept or some idea, even the idea of an otherwise useless object. It's still useful for pointing to illustrate the idea of an otherwise useless concept. It was useful for that purpose. So any possible object could be useful for at least one specifiable purpose. And so everything has the property of being useful. Like, what does that end up cashing out as? To me, it seems to reduce to saying that the thing in question could be useful to some goal or purpose. It still seems weird to say it's like a property of the thing. Well, I still don't know what that means.
and tied to my comment about realism or stance independence and stating that certain moral claims have the same sort of knowableness as claims like 2 + 2 = 4 or gravity works this way or the principle of non-contradiction, rules of practical rationality. I am not saying that everybody is always compelled by reason or math to follow the rules and regulations of reason or math. I'm just saying in that morality is just as truthy, just as justifiable, and just as knowable, that moral claims can have the exact same weight as logical facts or math.
Yeah, so I don't know what that means. They have the exact same weight, but what is that weight? What does that mean? So, like facts in logic or math, like he and I are going to have very different views about this because I'm a pragmatist about logic and math. I don't think of these as like some sort of deep a priori truths. I see these as things that are constructed systems that we have devised, and they map on a reality insofar as we put them to one or another of various theoretical or applied purposes. So, because I'm a pragmatist, I see their truth as emerging from their utility rather than them being true. And then we can go discover these truths and then figure out, oh, this is true. Is there some way to apply this in a useful way? So I see truth as downstream of value rather than value is downstream of truth. And for that reason, like the idea of these like there being these top down compulsions from the facts just doesn't make sense to me. That's not how facts work. Uh, but like this idea of them having force. What does that mean? I like these are so I take all of these to be descriptive facts. So they're true in the sense that they meet certain sorts of pragmatic conditions for fitting well with the rest of our beliefs and allowing us to make predictions and draw distinctions for better achieving our goals and serving various purposes that we put them to within models like predictive models and that sort of thing, or even everyday applied practical purposes. It's not like, for instance, math is only useful for doing math. Math is useful, and it's not just useful for scientific purposes like landing probes on Mars or whatever. It's also useful for adding up a bill, So there's lots of applied. But that their force is subordinate to our goals and interests and is derivative of it. If you're talking about stance independent moral facts, by their very nature, they wouldn't be that sort of thing. They're not here to serve us. We're here to serve them. That's what I take issue with. My moral standards are downstream of my goals and interests. I act in accord with what I value. So if someone were to come along and say there's facts about what's morally right or wrong, and they have the same force as logic or math or physics, what is that force exactly? What does that mean? It might be that I don't think any of these have force in the sense that he does, like at all. So I still think, he's doing this here and he did this in the other case where I want this thing to be like that other thing, but he doesn't make clear what the shared property is. It'd be like if I said, hey, my attitude about policy A is exactly like my attitude towards policy B. Okay, do you know what my attitude towards policy A and B is now? Because I said that I have the same attitude towards both. No. So, I think that he's saying I like this, or this thing is like this other thing, but he's not coming out and illuminating what exactly it is that they share in common. Like there might be a presumption that we would have a certain attitude about the force of math or logic or physics. I'm not sure that we have the same attitude about that. I'd still want it to get spelled out.
Mathematical facts or empirically justifiable facts. And none of those things were explicitly in the first video. Let's take a look at some of the comments Lance makes and see if these new additional explanations help us respond to his concerns.
Okay, so now we're going to be reviewing a review that's looking at me reviewing his video. So this is getting real Inception-y. So right now I'm reviewing a video of him, which is reviewing a video of me, which is reviewing a video of him. So what is it? 4 layers deep? But let me take a look at the chat first. Yeah, Coffee Smug said a few minutes ago, I don't get this. Sapir says, I think buoyancy is stance dependent. I don't. Sully says, pragmatism destroyed. Nathan says, 5 kilograms? Truthy reality is JavaScript. Digital Gnosis says, oh, so I'm calling you Digital Gnosis sometimes, Nathan. I'm being inconsistent. But but if pragmatism true, how useful but false? Yeah. Not a good objection to pragmatism. Sully says, useful things are true. Every proposition is useful trivialism. That's oversimplifying the sense. Pragmatism does not say if it's useful, therefore it's true. It does say, though, that things that are true will tend to be useful. So people sometimes get this reversed. I don't know why that happens, but there's been a lot of misrepresentations of pragmatism that have been really prominent. People in the academic literature and more generally don't seem to like pragmatism. Yeah, maybe this is a question he could address. I'm a quietist about this. I think it's kind of a pointless question. So Coffee Smug asks, is he an internalist or externalist about moral reasons? Like, is usefulness external or reducible reason? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he would say about this. I don't know if that's a feature of his perspective on things. Coffee Smug says, Metalance time. Yeah, let's do it. It's Metalance time.
So in this chunk, he's responding to the summary I sort of gave at the end of the video, where I go back over the argument and try to explain what I think it illustrated. Specifically right here, he's talking about the portion where I say that because one's psychological faculties and capacities that make them a person are responsible for their ability to find value in anything in the world, their personhood is valuable. But he identifies a way in which I kind of misspeak or speak loosely about it, But also, I think it really illustrates the difference between the conception of value we're working with, and hopefully this new one I just gave you will help us out.
I find a hidden I'm like in the desert. I'm lost in the desert, and I find a stash of water. And so, I'm saved. I got enough water. I'm going to be able to make it out of the desert, right? A big stash. Let's say that stash was put there by Reflective Journey. You put it there. You put the stash there. But I don't know that. Do I necessarily value you for having put it there? Because if you hadn't put it there, I wouldn't have the water and I would die. So do I necessarily value you for putting it there, even if I don't know that you put it there or that you exist? It seems like he might be committed to saying that, and that seems weird. I don't know. Am I doing analytic philosophy? That sounds like a counterexample. It's a thought experiment. Oh no, I don't catch me doing analytic philosophy. But like that is my reaction to that is I don't think you have to value the person that put the water there. And so if there's some precondition or characteristic of a thing that's necessary for the thing, but I'm not aware of it, I don't know that it follows that I necessarily value it, even if I don't know about it. That I don't what how would I value it? What would that mean? That seems like a strange notion of value. Again, I'm open to there being a construal of value in which that would be true.
So it's awesome that one Lance was doing.
I love it. Before he gets into that response, to Lance's, what am I watching? Grant Miller says, is Lance in the video? I'm confused. Yeah, I'm reviewing a video of someone that's responding to me. So they're going to play clips of me in a previous video. And yeah, I have a similar setup. So it still looks like it's me. All right. Nathan says, how is Lance reviewing himself from the future? I'm not. Well, live Lance is nested.
Doing a little analytic philosophy. And two, the construal of value that I think works is the one I just gave. It's properties that when exposed to a conscious being with certain sorts of desires, wants, needs, etc., or anything that allows someone to create value, then those necessary conditions that he, as he puts it, for the satisfaction of that desire or the achievement of one's goal are valuable, because the water has those properties that allow you to satisfy your thirst when you're about to die from dehydration in the desert. So given my new definition, yes, Reflective Journey, who I believe is the screen name of someone who was in the chat, is valuable, because but for Reflective Journey, you die in the desert. The second clip really illustrates.
Yeah, so there's a difference between saying something is valuable in the sense that it has properties that are like does he mean that if something is valuable if it's causally necessary for you to achieve some goal or desire, conditional on it being like the local means by which you achieve it or something? Because clearly, like we wouldn't say if there's 2 glasses of water and I only need 1 to quench my thirst, that it's like necessary. Like the glass 1 is necessary for me to quench my thirst because I could drink glass 2, and vice versa. I could drink glass 1 instead of glass 2. So neither of them is necessary. Like either one you could say would be sufficient to satisfy my desire. So each one has the property that like it's capable of satisfying my desire. But then would he say that you have to value the glass because the glass is necessary to hold the water if it wasn't in a glass or some like, of course, the necessity relation, we could finesse that because obviously it doesn't have to be glass. It could be an aluminum cup. It could be a ceramic cup. It could be a wood cup. It could be a plastic cup. There's all sorts of things it could be made out of. So it's not that the glass itself is necessary, but the glass or some alternative that could achieve the same outcome, which is to hold the water in place. If there's no cup holding it, like the water will disperse. It'll spill all over the table, and then I won't be able to drink it. I'm not going to lick it up off the floor. And if we're in the desert, it's going to sink right into the sand, and I'm not going to be able to get it. So I have to value the glass. But okay, if I have to value the glass, what about the person that made the glass? Because glass is made by people. Okay, so I have to value the person that made the glass. But then I have to value like the chemicals, the chemical composition that would allow one to make glass. And then I would have to value like the stars that produced the elements that created the sand or the particles or whatever that goes into the glass. And so then I have to value like the Big Bang because that's what set up the conditions for creating. So like, Carl Sagan has that famous phrase. He's like, if you want to make an apple pie, first you have to invent the universe. You have to create the universe. It'd be the same thing here. I have to value everything, apparently, like back to the origins of the universe, because all of those things were like antecedent conditions that were required for me to get to the point where I could drink the water. Is that what he's committing me to? But if so, what is it that I'm committed to? Am I committed to saying these things were like causally required for me to be in the situation where this thing can satisfy my desire? Because of course that's true. That's trivially true. But that doesn't mean like if we say that I'm like rationally committed. So if he wants to say therefore the things are valuable, if all that means is those things were required for me to be in the condition in order to value them, that would be true. But it certainly wouldn't be true that I would have to like consciously recognize and acknowledge this and think about them and value them. Like for instance, I value my family. Like I care about them. That's like a thought that I have. But I don't value the Big Bang in the same respect. Like I'm not like, oh, Big Bang, you matter so much to me. Oh, that sounds a little weird to put it like that when I'm saying Big Bang. But you see the difference. There's a difference between this act of valuing and then saying all of these things have the property of being valuable. Because when we cash out what that property is, it looks like it might be like all of the things in question are involved in some causal chain that would be required to arrive at the point at which the object or thing that I'm interacting with in the world could be where it is and what it is, so as for me to satisfy my desires by using it or interacting with it in some way. Okay, like if we're saying that, I don't know that anything very interesting or substantive is being said. If he's not saying that, I'm not sure what he's saying here.
How we can build off the first to hopefully address some of Lance's concerns. I want you to keep an eye out for a few things because there's some really interesting stuff happening. One, keep in mind the account of value that I fleshed out at the beginning of this video, the analogy to buoyancy. And I want you to pay attention to where he talks about feet, when he talks about gold, and when he asks for a contradiction. Because I think we can see something really, really cool about doing philosophy from this clip. If one values anything, they value themselves as a creature with those four characters.
See, this is where I'm getting a little worried. There's a difference between saying things are valuable and saying, because here he's talking about if one values anything, one values this. There's a difference between something being valuable and one valuing it, unless he's saying one values something if it's valuable. So if he's saying one to value something is to be something like logically committed to the thing having the property of being valuable with respect to one's desires or goals, then for instance, like here's a cup. I can't drink the liquid in this cup unless it's in a cup. And so, if I'm really thirsty and I value having the drink to satisfy my thirst, I'm still going to need the cup to do that. So I have to value the cup, and then I have to value, for instance, the cup maker. Now, what does that mean to say I have to value the cup maker? Does that mean that I must like think to myself, oh yeah, the cup maker, they really matter? Or is this some sort of like logical entailment that need not manifest as some sort of psychological fact about me? You see what I'm saying? There's a difference between valuing as a psychological state or disposition and then valuing as some sort of logical relation, which may or may not manifest as a distinct psychological phenomenon. It sounds like he might be using value to mean the latter, in which case I'm going to have big problems because I reject that conception of valuing. For me, valuing, it would be described in behavioral terms. It would be cashed out in terms of an agent's actions, attitudes, the sorts of things that the agent might say or report or something like that. And, you might say that if I really valued the drink, that there would be something irrational about like smashing the cup or not concerning myself with the welfare of people that make cups. And so he might be able to say that there would be some logical relation or entailment in having a consistent set of values where it's not that I actively value, like a currently value the cup maker, but there would be an issue of being like inconsistent or irrational if I were to say, yeah, I really value water and I value cups, but I don't value cup makers. Because if that were the case, it'd be a little inconsistent to say, I want there to be cups, but I don't care about the cup makers. Thing is, I'm not sure. I mean, a person I think is not necessarily being irrational if they have values that are in tension with one another. We would have to ask a question about like what it would mean for them to be irrational. Irrational relative to their interests or irrational in some other sense. The other thing is that it might very well be that a person, like if you're just going to cash out irrational in some sort of descriptive terms, then and I think agents can be irrational, but I don't like that would just end up being some sort of descriptive claim. Like you end up saying something like the agent has 2 or more goals, like that dispose them to act in ways that are at cross purposes or that don't achieve their values. Maybe that's what you might mean. That might be fine. There might be ways in which you could cash this out in a certain way that I might agree to, right? That there would be problems with an agent having inconsistent goals with respect to achieving its goals. That's not a problem for me. I would just agree with that. The question would be whether an agent is in fact committed to valuing, in the sense that he ends up talking about, where they would actually be acting against their own interests if, for instance, they harmed other people or they like violated Kantian maxims and that sort of thing. That's where I'm going to get off the boat. So even if you could somehow show me that if I care about drinking a glass of water, in this case it's tea, that I have to value the cup to be logically consistent, and to be logically consistent, I have to value the cup maker or something like that. Even if we're committed to that, it's not clear to me that an agent would necessarily be being irrational in the sense of having inconsistent values that clash internally with respect to achieving their own goals, if someone simply did not care about other people and just trampled all over them and wanted to crush them. So even if we grant some, even if the emphasis is on this sort of internal inconsistency in an agent's goals or values, I think it's going to be a real struggle to show that it's irrational to not care about other people, like full stop, regardless of what your values are.
Characteristic. And
so that is where I have a key issue, like the illicit leap. So let's say I value those 4 characteristics in myself. Okay, sorry, I got a little confused about where we're at because I'm watching myself and like he's talking, then I paused him there. He's playing my video, so how could I pause him? He had to be playing this, so this is weird. Let me take it back a little bit just so I know where we're at, because I clearly didn't pause him. He's playing the video of me, and yet it looks like I'm like taking over here. I don't know. Why would it? So
from this clip, one value.
Right. That's what's happening. Obviously, he's wearing a different outfit. This is a clip of, oh my God, this is getting insane. Okay. So this is a clip he's playing of me, playing a clip of him. And then me in that version is pausing a clip of him to comment on a version of him. So really, at this point, he is reviewing a video of me reviewing him, reviewing a video. This video that we're currently reviewing, he's reviewing, he's responding to me, but the me in the video is reviewing a video of him. This is ridiculous. I'm actually confusing myself about this. It's weird because like I didn't have a huge problem with the movie Inception, but I'm getting confused by this. Oh my. Digital gnosis is like my brain lands. This is happening to me too. I'm like, what the hell? I was actually like, wait, how am I pausing a video of him reviewing a video of me? And it's like, oh, he's playing a clip where I was reviewing a video of him. So give me a second. I need to process this. Nathan says, my poor midnight brain. Lefter says, could someone clip this portion, please? I hope he does a response to this. And then there's like, there's 2 of me here, and then I could respond to that. So there's like me, and then another me, and then another me. So, and they keep getting smaller. Oh my God. Nathan says, is this one of your psychological experiments? No. Zictamore says, I'm listening without watching, and it got weird listening to Lance. Yeah, the other me is slightly different lighting conditions or something too. I don't know. Okay. Andrew Moy says, Inception only went 3 dreams deep. We're in the big leagues now. Let's see. Because if he does a response to this, and then I do a response to that, it's going to get wild. So we'll see how far we could go. Saphir says, it's like I've done drugs when I haven't done drugs. Coffee Smug says, triple Lance experiment. I'm having fun with it. I think this might be the weirdest stream I've done. And I hope we got to shorten the name. Philosophunculus is too long. Philofunk. You got to show up and start commenting here. And then you could review your comments that you were making when I was reviewing you, reviewing me, reviewing you, reviewing me. That's what we got to get to. We got to get there. All right, let's keep going.
Values anything. They value themselves as a creature with those 4 characteristics. And
So that is where I have a key issue, like the illicit leap. So let's say I value those 4 characteristics in myself. Why would it follow that I must value them in other people? That I don't have to care about these conditions in and of themselves. If they're conditions that are needed for me to achieve my goals, fine. Then I'm like, okay, I might think, okay, so I need these conditions in order to achieve my goals. Okay, but it doesn't mean that I think that the conditions are good in themselves. I think that they're good because they allow me to achieve my goals. They are not my goals. I don't have the goal of having free will. I don't have the goal of having practical rationality. I just need those things in order to get the glass of. So sure, okay, I'm glad I have those things because they allow me to achieve my goals. But that doesn't mean that I think that those things are good simpliciter or something. They're good because I need my feet to walk around. That doesn't mean that I have to care about other people's feet. Like I do. I'm glad other people have their feet and they can get around too. But I don't think that it follows from the fact that I value my feet, that I must value other people's feet because my feet are necessary for me to walk around. And yeah, okay, so their feet are necessary for them to walk around. It doesn't follow that if I value my feet for me to walk around, that I have to value other people's feet for them to walk around. Why would that follow? Any creature? No, I don't. I don't have to think that. I might think that. I do generally think other people matter, but I'm just saying you're not. Yeah. So Gary Russ says reason requires you obey them and other people. What do you mean? Reason requires I obey what and other people? Otherwise, you get into a contradiction. I don't think that Philosopher Funculus identified any contradiction in my position, and when he attempts to lay one out, I'm not convinced that any contradiction arises. So you can't value an objective X in one, but not value an objective X in another. I don't know what you mean by an objective X, but take something like money. I can value my money and not value your money. Now, there's a sense in which I might value like you having money because it allows you to buy things from me or sell things, but I can assign greater weight to my money than your money. I can assign greater weight to my family than your money, than your family. I can assign greater weight to an object merely in virtue of the fact that I possess it and you don't. So, my car is more valuable to me than your car because I get to use my car and I don't get to use your. So when something is mine, it has differences that allow it to achieve my goals more readily than something that's yours. So my feet allow me to achieve my goals. Your feet don't allow me to achieve my goals in the same way, in same respect. So it's not that when I value my feet, they have the property of being valuable, and that's why I value my feet. They're valuable. And so therefore, just as my feet are valuable, your feet are valuable. And so clearly, if my feet are valuable and your feet are valuable, and the reason I value my feet is because they're valuable, well, your feet are valuable too. So I would have to regard them as valuable. There is sleight of hand going on there. No. That is not how I think any of this works. It's that my feet allow me to walk around and achieve my goals. Your feet don't allow me to do that. They have very little to do with me achieving my goals. I don't regard my feet as having the property of being valuable, and that is why I value them. I value my feet because they let me achieve my goals. Your feet don't. Gold in my hand is worth something because I could spend it to get the things I want. That same gold in your hand, if you own it, I can't spend that gold. So the gold doesn't have the property of being valuable independent of whether it's mine or not. It's that gold, depending on whether it's mine or yours, can allow me to achieve different sorts of outcomes. So I think that there's something super duper weird. Basically, what I think is happening is that the proponents of the sort of view that he's advocating are insisting on reifying valuing as an action and treating things as having these properties, and then turning around and saying, well, because they have the property and these two things have the same property, you have to regard them as one like the other, or there's an inconsistency there. I do not have to consider your personhood as valuable. That there might be an equivocation there. Like, if by valuable you mean that it's necessary for like your personhood and my personhood are both necessary conditions for us to achieve our respective goals, that might be true. And in that respect, I could say they're both valuable, but it wouldn't follow that because something has the property that it can satisfy your desires, that it would satisfy my desires, and that therefore it has value to me. So another way to put this is that I don't think things can just have value. Things have value to, or value relative to some goal. And so, some sort of characteristic or property or object in the world can be valued by me and to me and for achieving my goals, and can be useful relative to achieving my goals and desires. And simply because that, some similar thing, or even like, an object with otherwise identical properties, could be used by you for achieving your goals or your desires, whatever it would, be, doesn't, nothing about that requires me to, I don't have to value your personhood. I don't have to value your desires and goals. I don't have to consider the thing important. I don't have to respect your goals and values on penalty of irrationality, because I don't have to value you achieving your goals. So if the thing is valuable in the sense that it has the property that it would be consistent with achieving your goals and values, so what? What if I don't care about your goals and values or you achieving them? How am I being irrational if I just go, yeah, I don't care about you achieving your goals and desires? Yeah, so this is the stuff. So if you value a property X, then you must value that X universally based on reason. What does it mean to value it universally? So, you know, I don't know what you mean by that. I must value it universally. Why must? Well, first of all, before I even say why must I do that, I'd have to know what that means. Um, Used feet as an example for X. Yes, you can assign greater weight for subjective viewpoint, but from an objective reason-based viewpoint, you don't have a basis to differentiate. I don't know what that means. So when I'm assigning value to things, it just is an expression of my subjective values. There isn't any further sense in which I think things uh, are valuable, like independent of my goals or desires. That's the sort of thing that I think doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't even think it's false. I think it's literally nonsensical. So there are facts about what my goals and desires are, and there are facts about what would achieve my goals and desires. There are no further facts. And so I don't think the sort of account that we're being given here can even get off the ground. Or at least I don't think that the sort of account on offer can reveal any sort of inconsistency or contradiction in my views. Yeah, so like this isn't going to get us very far. So Gary says, from a subjective viewpoint, you can value whoever's gold as much as you want, but from an objective standpoint, gold is gold. But I'm not disputing that gold is gold. So if I have a glass of water, you have a glass of water, I'm not disputing that they're glasses of water. It's just that I can quench my thirst with my glass of water, but not with yours. So I care more about my glass of water. If it came down to like, some alien is like, I'm going to vaporize one of these glasses of water, which one's it going to be? All else being equal, I'd prefer they vaporize the other person's and not mine, to the extent that I'm being selfish in some context. So yeah, Gary says here, you can value whatever from a subjective perspective, but you need to look at a third person reason base. That is, if you value reason. Oh, what do you mean by that? I need to look at a third person. I'm not quite, maybe there's missing words there. If you value reason, if you don't value reason, value whatever you want. What do you mean by reason? All right. Yeah. So value universally, value from a third person perspective. So that strikes me as literally unintelligible. What would it mean to value something from a third person perspective? I don't think value can occur in a third person perspective. That's like talking to me. That sounds like something being tasty from a third person perspective, or fun from a third person perspective. Can something be fun independent of, or funny? Can something be funny independent of anybody's reaction to it? What would that even mean? I'm not saying it's false. I'm saying I don't know what that would mean. Like, I'm not the a priorist rationalist philosopher, but from like, if I had to be one, what I would say is like, hey, if there's a priori facts, one of the a priori facts is that value is relative. Like it's just relational. It's indexed to the standards of one, or like to one or more of some different standard. So the idea of like third person perspectives of value is nonsensical to me. It'd be to me, it's a bit like, and I think I gave this example, I don't know, like a year ago on this channel or something. Imagine there's an object, like there's a basketball sitting in the middle of a room. And, if I place you around the room at any point, like I put you 1 meter from it, 10 centimeters from it, 50 meters from it, I could, and like, I put you above it or below it or whatever. And I ask you, like, what does the basketball look like? Assuming there's normal lighting conditions, not pitch black, you should be able to say, oh yeah, the basketball, like it looks very large. It takes up most of my field of view. if you're at an angle and like all the light in the room is coming from one side, you might say, ah, well, I'm within the shadow of it, so it looks very dark. Or you could be on the bright side of it. You could say, oh, it looks very bright. I could see like the lines. I could see the orange of basketball. So depending on the angle, you'd be able to describe what you see. Now, what would the basketball look like if you were looking at it from no particular point of view? What? Like you something can only be seen from a point of view. So the question, what would it look like from no point of view at all, is a kind of misguided question. For something to look a certain way, it must look that way from a point of view. We could even just say, like, for something to look away is for it to present a given set of characteristics from a point of view. Like you might even say it's like part of the concept of a thing looking away to be held from a point of view. So the idea of a view from nowhere strikes me as just literal nonsense. It just doesn't make sense. So, and then you have stuff like this. You have to, if you value reason. If you don't value reason, then it's like it's not applicable. So some of this reminds me of that David Lewis quote. That's like, where is what is that quote? I always miss that quote. Can someone get me that quote about like the hangman or whatever? I'm trying to look it up now. I could never find that quote. Never remember that quote. So the quote is something like, if you deny this like notion that certain folk terms won't apply to you, as if that's some sort of threat, like, hey, if you reject this position, then we won't use this term to describe your views. Okay. Like what, how is that a threat? And Lewis makes this little quip about, whoever thought like words could be a substitute for like the hangman or something. I can't remember the exact quote. Let me check if someone found the quote. Please find the quote. I can never find it. Whenever I Google it, it's just Google does not understand what I'm looking for. Like if I'm like David Lewis hangman quote, it just doesn't find anything. See if I could get it. Just doesn't come up. I don't know why. Google, why do you suck so much? Where is this quote? Ugh, very, very, very frustrating. So I'm going to have to make a bookmark specifically to set aside the quote because it's so annoying that I can never find it. It's like the 30th time that I've tried to find it, and it's just... Nope. 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 Where the hell is it? Man, that's frustrating. All right. No one has given me the quote in chat. Someone find the damn quote. David Lewis hangman quote. Yeah. So Nathan asks, how does a person value something from a third person perspective? Yeah. I don't know how I would value something from a third person perspective. Like valuing just is first personal. Yeah. As Nathan says, like third person is a grammatical tense. Yeah. I don't get it. Yeah, Grant Miller asks, wouldn't they just be trying to give an independent perspective? It would still be their perspective. That's what I think. So I think people that are trying to adopt a view from nowhere are just smuggling in their own subjective values and then going, but the view from nowhere, isn't it coincidental and highly suspicious that it happens to agree with their values pretty much always? Yeah, so Gary Ross says value can't occur from a third person perspective. Fair market value is a commonly understood concept. Yeah, so something like a fair market value is going to be some sort of artificial construction based on extrapolating on presumptive values that real or hypothetical agents would hold. That's not going to help me very much. So Latier says, I think Lance is talking about availability or something. In reality, there's no reason to consider your feed as more valuable as the other feed other than yours are more readily available. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to start getting into stuff, people saying like my arms are not more valuable to me than other people's arms, that strike, like if anything's going to strike me as silly in philosophy, like that is like clearly my arms are more useful for me than other people's arms. Like, look, I could move my arm around and do stuff with it. Like this hand is way more useful for achieving my goals than your hands, whoever's watching this. So like, come on, like it's a Morian argument. Here's one hand, here's another. My hands are real useful for achieving my goals. Your hands, not so much. Can't do a whole lot with your hands. I can't move them around. So yeah, call it availability if you want. But like my hands stand in a different relation to me than other people's hands. So clearly they're more valuable. They are of more value to me. So Gary, thanks for all the engagement, Gary. I know I'm being like a little argumentative here, but for me, this is fun. It's not intended to be combative in an unpleasant way. All right, I'm just going through the chat here, but I think we got to get. Grant says, "I think Lance's arms are more valuable than mine." All right, let's continue with the video, and let me take it back a bit just so I know where we're at again. Walk. My feet are necessary for me to walk around, and yeah, okay, so their feet are necessary for them to walk around. It doesn't follow that if I value my feet for me to walk around, that I have to value other people's feet for them to walk around. Why would that follow? Any creature? No, I don't. I don't have to think that. I might think that. I do generally think other people matter, but I'm just saying, like you're not rationally obligated to think that because you are a creature that has these characteristics, therefore it's good for any creature to have these characteristics. You could just think, yeah, it's good. I'm glad I have them, but it doesn't mean you have to value them. I'm just not obligated to care about other people's goals or interests or values, just because I care about my own. I just don't see how that would follow. And this is something I asked Richard Brown. If there's a contradiction here, I'd like to. This is a case where I'd like to see it formalized. Like, what am I committed to? Where there's like, I'm committed to P and not P. What is the specific contradiction? I would like to see what that contradiction is. Like, it's hard to analyze this because it's so unclear what the contradiction is supposed to be. He's not explicitly laying it out. So it might be something like, it would be contradictory to think the 4 conditions are valuable, and then to value them in yourselves, and then another person has the conditions, and then you think they're not valuable. So, imagine if I think this piece of gold is 100 grams, and you're holding a equally sized piece of gold, and I say, well, my piece of gold is 100 grams, but yours isn't. That seems kind of stupid. Assuming it's the same substance, it's going to be the same, and it's the same size or whatever. It would be weird to say mine has a certain amount of a certain property and yours doesn't. It's going to have the same property regardless of who's holding it or whose it is. And so someone might think, if your agency or free will or whatever is valuable, it'd be ridiculous to say yours is valuable, but another person's isn't valuable. Because if yours is the property of valuableness, then another person's is going to have the property of valuableness because it's the same thing. But that's not how I see value. I don't see value as a property of things. I see value as like it's a verb. It's not a noun. Like, I value things. Things don't have value. Like I could say that they have value, but that doesn't mean that they actually have the property of value or valuableness independent of me valuing them.
So a handful of really cool things in this clip. First,
okay. Actually, I can't tell. So a few things before we get into it. So Zictomorph says, "What about your arms are more valuable to you than mine are to me?" I don't think that the question makes sense. I don't know. To ask whether my arms are more valuable to me than yours are to you, because we're indexing the value of our arms to 2 different standards. So I don't know that there's any sort of commensurability or like fungibility in my standards of value and your standards of value. So what I would say is my arms are more valuable to me than your arms are valuable to me, and your arms are more valuable to you than my arms are valuable to you. But I'm not saying that my arms are more valuable to me than your arms are valuable to you, because then we're indexing 2 different standards. And I don't know I don't know that there's any way in principle that you could make cross standard comparisons and then judge one of those standards as being like more valuable than the other. In other words, it's like if there's 2 different systems of grading things, then one system you grade things according to one standard, and some other system you grade things according to another standard. This system can grade this system, and that system can grade this system. But to say, well, like what makes this system more correct? Like, look at your, okay, what about your arms are more valuable to you than mine are to me? That almost makes it seem like there's some independent standard of evaluating the two standards, which would allow me to say my standard is better than your standard. It's more valuable than your standard, like external to the two standards or something. But I don't think there's anything like that. So I don't think that that makes sense. There's not like an external means of evaluating standards in a non-relative way or relative to some impersonal standard independent of it being indexed to one or the other standards. So I don't think that the question seems to rely on a presupposition that would be inconsistent with the way that I see value. So Sapir says, by the way, for new viewers, Lance isn't wearing the same shirt. In the video being reviewed, he has one that says Monday on the tag, but right now he's wearing a Tuesday or Wednesday shirt. I don't think that's true. This is my shirt. I don't know if I'm wearing the same shirt as in the other video. That would be pretty funny. It could be. Yeah, so Gary has elaborated. Third person value means value based on objective universal reasons. I don't know what an objective universal reason is. So Gary says here, reasons you can convey to anyone else regardless of subjective state, public justifications. We would have to have a further discussion to see what that means. If you want to pop in the channel sometime, we could do that. Okay, let's keep going with the video.
Lance is totally right that my language is really loose, if not just misguided at times. I should have been making really, really clear distinctions between value, valuing, and something being valuable. To extend our conception of value to his feet example, I would be arguing that feet are necessarily valuable to a person who enjoys walking. And if they say, no, they're not valuable to me, then, well, chop off your feet and see how far you get. They are necessary conditions of satisfying a particular desire. If you want to walk on your feet, you have to have them. And that's the way I am viewing those psychological capacities that one has with regard to creating value in the world at all, valuing anything at all. So when I'm saying a being who is rational, reflective, has wants, needs, desires, inclinations, and believes they act freely, then those criteria collectively are what allow them to value anything at all, whatever their subjective preference is, whether it's to walk, to run, to lay in bed, or to chop off their feet. And if we couple that with my hopefully clarified definition, things can be valuable. What's really awesome and interesting to me, his gold example is the sort of argument I would give, but I never gave. And he comes to it because he's trying to interpret my argument as generously as he possibly can. When you're having
to be fair, he's talking me up here, but I've used similar examples. It's not like I haven't encountered Kantian stuff before, and I gave similar examples in my discussion with Richard Brown. So this isn't new for me to bring this stuff up. And I it's very unlikely that I like invented this in that conversation or this conversation. I can't recall exactly where I would have gotten this from, but these sorts of examples would probably be things that I read in some book or paper or something in a class a long time ago. I'm not inventing new ideas here. That's just not happening.
Some sort of Socratic or dialectical argument. The goal is to respond to one another's claims to get closer to the truth. And you can see Lance doing that by himself. He's doing his best to fill in the blank that I left as well as he can with this gold explanation. And it's really pretty good. And you see how unbelievably close to the argument I would make it is, because I'm saying one's personhood is valuable to them, whether they're aware of it or recognize it. And he's considering value to only be the act of valuing it. He talks about it over and over again as a verb. And I get that. And I agree with it. But I also want to talk about value and something being valuable as a noun, as referred.
Yeah. So like you could stipulate that you're using your terms however you want. What I do worry about is that if you stipulate that by valuable, you mean a thing has properties such that they would satisfy desires under some conditional set of circumstances. And then we talk about valuing as some sort of like a current state in which one regards something as like relevant to achieving their goals or desires or something like that. You have to be really, really careful not to equivocate between saying if something is valuable, you have to value it, because that wouldn't follow. So if something is a property that it could satisfy a desire that someone else has, it wouldn't commit me to, therefore, it would be irrational for me to not care about it. I don't have to care about you satisfying your desires. Like that wouldn't be irrational. We might say it's irrational for me to not care about a thing that would satisfy my desires. If by rational, like we mean acting in accord with what would achieve your desires, then it in fact would be irrational to not care about something that would help you achieve your desires. Like if you have the desire to quench your thirst and there's a glass of water that would quench your thirst and you go, yeah, but I don't want that. Like now you're acting in a way that's inconsistent with achieving your desires. If that's what we mean by being irrational, yeah, that's irrational. But it doesn't quench my thirst for you to drink a glass of water. So why would I care about that? Now, I do care about other people drinking their glasses of water and quenching their thirst because I care about other people. I don't want them to suffer, like under most conditions and circumstances and stuff like that. But those are different things. Oh, wow. So Matt Springfield has thrown $10 my way and says, it's hard to catch every stream, but I appreciate your work. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I rarely get these, but they are much appreciated when I do get them. My biggest one that someone gave me $100, and that's what allowed me to buy the mic that you see here, or not the mic here, the mic stand that it's on now. I already had the mic. So I just needed a mic stand. And so now it's really improved the audio quality, but every little bit helps. Maybe this can contribute to me, getting some other, getting off of this, whatever is causing this to freeze. Maybe I need a new webcam. Maybe I need to switch to a different platform for hosting stuff on here. I hope I don't have to. I'm really used to StreamYard. But thank you very much. I'll throw you back up there, Matt. So this is Matt Springfield. I don't know if we've interacted a lot, but I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Should we keep going? Let's keep going.
Referring to something which has the collection of properties that allow us to value things in that verb-like way. And so in the case of firewood, it has the properties that allow me to satisfy a rationally constructed desire that I can freely pursue.
Yeah, so what I'll note here is if something has properties that allow it to satisfy desires, that doesn't necessarily mean it has the properties that allow it to satisfy my desires. And even if it has properties that allow it to satisfy my desires, that doesn't mean that I'm in a position to have those desires satisfied by engaging with, interacting, or utilizing that particular thing. So like, again, like if someone else has a particular glass of water, it's their glass of water, they're on the other side of the planet. Like it has the property that can, like, if I were to have the glass and to drink it, it would quench my thirst. But that glass of water is not very useful to me. It's not going to satisfy my thirst. It's going to satisfy their thirst. And so you could say it's valuable in the sense that conditional on it being in my possession, I'd be able to satisfy my desires with it. That would be true. But I don't like, that doesn't mean that I would value that glass of water or that I'm like rationally committed to valuing that glass of water. It's not useful to me given the circumstances that are in fact the case. So just because it hypothetically could satisfy my desires doesn't mean that in practice it would in fact be like those conditions would be met in practice. It might just not be very valuable to me. So you could think of something like a weapon, right? So if you are in a fight to the death, it's a sword, you could say, would be valuable because it could be used to defend yourself. You might have to kill the other person to survive, like in self-defense. So the sword, like you could value the sword, but like if it's in the other person's hand, you wouldn't have to like value them using it against you. You would say, okay, that's bad. I don't want them to use the sword. I'd rather there not be this sword. So the fact that the sword could be used by me to protect myself doesn't require me to value the sword. Like I wouldn't, in other words, there's a sense in which I would value it in my hand, but not in your hand. In fact, it would be actively bad for it to be in your hand if you're trying to kill me. So this I think is a way of illustrating how the way in which we assign value to something would be conditional on its actual use to us, like the actual sense in which it is facilitating the achievement of our desires. We can say that it has all these sorts of it's valuable in all these it's all these potential senses, but that's consistent with me not valuing something given the actual conditions that I'm in. I don't know if that distinction is helpful here or not, but let's keep going.
And in the case of us, my personhood is what allows me to actively value anything at all. So in that I'm seeing it as a noun, the contradiction he's asking for is perfectly described when he talks about how it would be sort of stupid for someone to say, my 100 ounces of gold is 100 ounces and your 100 ounces or grams or whatever it is of gold isn't. What someone's doing if they deny someone else's personhood is saying, my personhood has the properties that allows me to have and satisfy particular desires and fulfill. Someone's doing if they deny someone else's personhood.
Yeah, what does he mean by deny their personhood? So I don't deny other people are people. And so if I say I don't care about you and I don't care about your life, I'm not denying that you're a person. So what does he mean by that?
Is saying, my personhood has the properties that allows me to have and satisfy particular desires and fulfill my purposes and accomplish my goals. And that's what makes them valuable as properties of me as a person, as a noun. So my personhood is valuable and yours isn't.
Yeah, so that I'm not committed to that. So if by valuable, he means that like, okay, if by like personhood is valuable because it's a necessary condition for you to value things and achieve your goals and desires. A person could think this, okay, I totally grant that this person, their personhood is valuable in that it's a necessary condition for that person to achieve their goals and desires. And my personhood is valuable in the sense that it's a necessary condition for me to achieve my values. But it doesn't follow that they have to, for instance, care about that other person or value that other person or respect that other person's personhood. They could go over and like stomp that other person to death. What would be the contradiction if they wow, that was a long freeze. They're not in doing that denying that the person, oh wow, lots of freezing. Okay, damn it, this freezing is really annoying. Okay, sorry, let me start over. Okay, so a person could say, hey, you have personhood, I have personhood, both of our personhoods are necessary conditions for each of us to achieve our own goals and desires. They could nevertheless then go, okay, but I don't care about your personhood, I don't care about you achieving your goals and desires, and they could go and kill you. And I don't see what the contradiction would be if they did that. So they wouldn't be denying that it's in fact the case that your personhood is necessary for you to achieve your values. They could say, yeah, no, I recognize that, but I don't care about that. I don't care about your personhood and I don't care about you achieving your values. What would the contradiction be? Maybe he's not saying there's a contradiction there, but if that's the case, I think he's gonna have a problem here because I thought the whole point of this was to say that there would be something irrational about not respecting other people's goals and interest and values and person and that sort of thing. And so would a person be being irrational on his view if they don't care about other people and they go around like lying and manipulating and even murdering other people to further their own interests? What would the contradiction be? I'm still unclear on what the contradiction is supposed to be.
Even though the properties that make me capable of valuing are the exact same as the properties that make you capable of valuing.
Right. So you could just say, yeah, okay, I need to have a heart to live. You need to have a heart to live. Does that mean I'm contradicting myself if I stab you in the heart? What's the contradiction? Like this is not making sense to me.
Only difference is the object of our desires or our subjective preferences or the particular things that turn our crank. But no matter what those are, even if we take all of those away, our personhood is valuable. So for a sort of simple, informal presentation of the contradiction that Lance was asking for, it would be saying, my personhood is valuable, regardless of my subjective preferences, my purposes.
Right. So I don't think that. So I don't think he's identified a contradiction in my views. So take a look at what he says here.
Presentation of the contradiction that Lance.
So I want a contradiction in my views of what I am committed to. Maybe I didn't say that in the previous video. I don't know.
Was asking for, it would be saying, my personhood is valuable.
So if by valuable he means personhood is a necessary condition for achieving your values, then I agree. Like I can agree, at least for the sake of argument. Maybe I wouldn't agree because maybe I don't agree about what personhood is or something like that. But we could just grant for the sake of argument, personhood is a necessary condition for valuing things. Let's just grant that for the sake of argument. And then let's grant that that is what it means for it to be valuable for the sake of argument. If I've understood him, maybe I haven't. Okay, so I agree with that. But he's adding more stuff here. And I don't know if he's argued for, explained, or defended any of this. Okay, so personhood is valuable in the sense that it's a necessary condition for me to value things and achieve my goals. Fine.
Regardless of my subjective preferences.
Why is this regardless of my subjective preferences? So you might say, okay, well, that personhood is a necessary condition for me to achieve my values and goals. That is true, regardless of whether I prefer or value that that's the case. And in that sense, the fact that on descriptive grounds, personhood is necessary for me to achieve my goals and values, it's valuable in that sense. This, I think, is taking that term valuable, a term that I would have thought would be like a normative term. It seems to me to be turning it into a descriptive term about the necessary conditions for an agent to value things. And then let's take it back a bit.
Simple, informal presentation of the contradiction that Lance was asking for. It would be saying, my personhood is valuable, regardless of my subjective preferences, my purposes, or my goals.
So I think that there might be some issue with saying, regardless of my preferences, goals, that sort of thing. So there's a sense in which it might be descriptively true that personhood, it's like it stands independently true that personhood is a necessary condition in order to value things. Let's grant that for the sake of argument. So that's true, independent of my goals or preferences. Okay.
Because it allows me to satisfy any of my desires, fulfill any of my purposes, and fulfill goals, regardless of what they are. Identically, your personhood allows you to have and pursue any subjective desires you might have, purposes you might fulfill, and goals you might want to accomplish.
Right. So let's grant that that's true too. So my personhood is necessary for me to achieve my goals. Your personhood is necessary for you to achieve your goals.
So when I say mine's valuable and yours is not, I'm
right. So what I'm saying, mine is valuable and yours is not. So I could say they're both valuable in the sense he's talking about, but nothing about that has any normative traction. So if by valuable he just means my personhood is necessary for me to achieve my desires, so it's valuable. Your personhood is necessary for you to achieve your desires, so your personhood is valuable. Okay, it's valuable. But it being valuable in the sense that he's using the term here doesn't logically require me to value it. So, because remember, all he said that something being valuable is that it had some sort of like capacity or potential to be valued by something for its goals or whatever it. Now, what I'm not granting is that your personhood is necessary for me to achieve my goals and desires. And likewise, that my personhood is necessary for you to achieve your goals and desires. And so I think there's some sort of something going wrong here where, sure, just because my personhood is necessary for me to achieve my goals, it doesn't mean, and your personhood is necessary for you to achieve your goals and desires. It doesn't mean your personhood is necessary for me to achieve my goals or that mine is necessary for you to achieve your goals. So insofar as my personhood is valuable, something funny is going on here. The relation I stand in relation to my personhood is different than the relation I stand in with respect to your personhood. My personhood is really, really important for me to, it's like it's necessary for me to achieve my goals and values. Yours isn't. So why would I have to value your personhood just because it has like potential value or it's a necessary condition for you to value things? So something funky is going on here.
Contradicting myself because the value has nothing to do with my stance or my
right. So, but he's making a descriptive claim. So it's true as a stance independent fact in this case that personhood is necessary for an agent to achieve its goals and desires. But that has nothing to do with when I'm going about making decisions. What I'm trying to do is, okay, I'm saying, what are my goals and desires? How do I achieve those? Okay, that your personhood is a necessary condition for you to achieve your goals and desires has nothing to do with whether I have some sort of rational obligation to care about your personhood or to care about your goals and desires, because I'm only trying to achieve my goals and desires. I don't desire or care about your personhood or your desires. I don't care about those. I care about my desires. And so even if I was required to value my personhood, it wouldn't follow that I'm required to value your personhood. This is, I think, the issue that I have with this. So we have a few responses to this. Coffee Smug says he's saying, and I don't know if these these comments are going to be accurate. I haven't even read the whole comment yet. So Coffee, maybe you're wrong. We'll see. Or maybe I just won't know. I'm just going to have to talk to Philosophuncula's to try to straighten out where our differences lie. So Coffee says, sorry, let's go. Coffee says, He's saying that our value projecting mental capacity should be valued as objective ends because these capacities ground value as such. Nothing would have the value in the world without these capacities. So just because they're a necessary condition for us to value things doesn't mean we have to value them. Unless by value, you just mean we have to regard them as necessary conditions for us to value things. Okay, so they're necessary conditions for us to value things. What does that mean? To say that, okay, so they're valuable. Does that mean I must care about them or something? And if I must care about them in what respect? And do I have to assign equal concern to me having the capacity in question and other people having the capacity in question? And if so, why would I have to do that? It's still unclear to me what's being said here. Yeah, Question Quander says it's a type dependence error or indexicality issue. Yeah, there's some type of indexing issue or some sort. I think there's some sort of linguistic or conceptual issue that's at work here. Because just the idea that like we're going to play around with words like value and valuable, and then somehow out of that we get like I'm acting against my interests if I don't care about your interests or the conditions that are not like. There's a whole bunch of propositions I'm perfectly willing to grant that are like descriptive facts. So like I can grant, yeah, other people, they need to have like a brain to think about things and make decisions and achieve their goals, but like, you know, other people are going to value things that are at odds with my values. I don't have to value their values being at odds with my values. This is an example that like I gave to Richard Brown is like, because he was saying something like, you know, you can't have, I don't remember exactly what he was saying. Maybe I'd have to go and play the clip, but I gave this example of a UFC fight. We should go find the clip. If someone can actually go do that, let me give you the Richard Brown clip. Let's just play that. We'll try to find the specific clip. I got to wait for the, I got to find the transcript. Is there? Yeah, there's a transcript. One moment. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to drop this video for a moment. We're going to play the other video. And I'm going to have to go in about 5 or 10 minutes. So we're going to have to end the stream. So we'll have to wrap things up here. 1 second.
You have an MMA, a UFC. That's really what I know about it. Let's face it. Suppose you have one of these fighter guys, and they don't lose, and they love winning, and they hate losing, and they fight, and they blah blah, and then they find out afterwards that every fight was fixed.
Yeah, I know I gave a response. This is going straight to him talking, but I had some kind of response to this.
What's the response? They love it. They don't love it.
Well, it's going to be contingent on their particular psychology. They might be upset about that. They might think that that's fine. It's going to depend on the person.
So the person who truly values winning, I think, would be upset.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
It'd be weird if they weren't.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about, is that the person values the fight, the fairness of it, and the competition of it. And if they don't want to lose that competition, but the thing that they're entering, willing, and engaging in is we are pitting ourselves against each other, and I want to battle you. So it would be inconsistent for them to have that and to fix the fight against the other person. And not give them the chance to fairly fight, and give them the chance to win. Even though they hate losing, they owe it to the other person to give them a chance to win, or I think they don't truly value winning.
Well, they could even just value humiliating other people. So let's say there's a boxer that just values humiliating other people.
Yeah.
Would it be inconsistent if they didn't want to be humiliated themselves? Like they just enjoy humiliating other people in the ring, and they're like in cahoots with fixing the fights. I mean, I would be willing to bet they're like historically there just are boxers and other sorts of fighters like that.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm not saying that you must have enjoy everything that you are. So if you enjoy humiliating somebody, and somebody else humiliates you, and then you become indignant, I think that's the inconsistency. I don't think you have to enjoy being humiliated. The whole point of the inconsistency is that you don't enjoy being humiliated, but the thing which is the thing that you enjoy and don't enjoy is the same. It's just that the humiliation isn't yours in the other case, but it's still humiliation. So you seem to want to argue that it's my humiliation that I'm disagreeable to, but I think it's humiliation. And then once you start to transcend your personal point of view, your place in history, et cetera, then what you see, the thing that you're really disagreeable is the humiliation part. And that's the same. They're humiliated, you're humiliated. That's the same. So if you don't like it, the thing you don't like is being humiliated. That's happening over there. So you have a reason to not like what's happening over there. It seems to, and I don't see how you fuse the predicate in the way that you want to, my humiliation versus their humiliation. It doesn't seem that it's mine makes it different.
Is this, so it seems to me, and maybe I'm just wrong about this, that it would be an empirical claim, whether it's the case that when a person, like if a person said, I enjoy humiliating others, that it's the case that like they are against humiliation and they're for humiliation, like in some abstract sense from the point of view of the universe, or it's just the case that they genuinely just enjoy humiliating others and they also do not enjoy being humiliated.
I would take it as an empirical. Yeah, I think that's an.
Yeah, I like that. He's like, yeah, he takes that as empirical.
Okay, so then I would want to look at the like psychological evidence to show that it's the case that when a person is, say, selfish, or they have different standards for themselves than for others, like they care about, like, so a person might say, I value my family members more than I value other people's family members, and I understand that they value their family members more than they value my family members. But I don't like, from my point of view, like I might care that other people value their family members, but I'm not going to assign the same amount of weight to their family members as I do to my own.
Well, no one's saying that you have to, because there may be other factors that weigh the scales. So I was arguing for a bare minimal. They matter. That you need some other things to weight the scale, which is, I think, is what you just admitted to in a sense.
Well, just in that circumstance.
Yeah, well, that's all I need is one. I mean, that's really all that matters.
Well, that would just be a psychological fact about that person that they care about that. But I don't think that, like, I'm not rational if I don't have the same psychological states as they do. So, like, if an alien,
but you're using a different sense of rationality, though. So, I mean,
and so like the sense of rationality that you have in mind, I'm fine with just saying that there's these two different senses, and you could say you don't like mine or you don't want to call it rationality. You know, I could call it smashionality. That's fine.
I say practical rationality, but it assumes the kind of thing I'm talking about.
There's more that could be, like, I thought this was a fun discussion. I'd love to revisit it with him someday. Unfortunately, I am going to have to go, but I didn't get to finish the Philosophiculist video, so I guess I'm gonna have to do another stream and wrap it up, because it feels weird and unsatisfactory to have to end it here. But I got to go have dinner and spend some time with my family. So just going to have to go, everybody. So we'll leave it there. I will return to the Philosophiculist video. And we're just, he and I are just going to have a conversation about this stuff. And maybe we could iron it out in real time. And yeah, this contradiction stuff is going to be interesting. I know I fumbled through a lot of that because it's hard to get through it. And a lot of it was repetitive. What I'm doing here is I'm kind of thinking in real time about this stuff. So hopefully this was fun. Yeah, I had another freeze. And then I'll catch up with the people that are supposed to DM me. Go ahead and message me, and I'll try to get things fixed up. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for now. This was a goofy, sloppy stream, but I had a blast. I hope you did too. And I will see you all later. So do like the video. Oh, I should start pausing in the middle of my videos to start saying, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff. Leave comments. I love the engagement. And thanks so much, everybody, for being such an active audience. You really make this fun and lively and engaging for me. And I appreciate you way more than you realize. I know I'm not the most emotive person. Maybe that sounds ridiculous. Maybe I'm not the most like, I don't know, mushy person. I don't know the term. But I really do appreciate y'all. You really make these streams fun for me, and that keeps me doing it. Like, you might think, oh my God, how can this guy do 126 videos or whatever on metaethics or whatever it is at this point? And it's because of the community that's formed here. You really make this. Make me look forward to coming back and having more conversations. So thank you, especially we'll give an MVP for this talk to Gary for having really good comments, for challenging me and pushing me on that, for Nathan for saying some fun things, and for the rest of you for offering useful advice. And Sam, I haven't seen you in a while, and I see you here in the comments. So I hope you'll pop back into another one, because I do have to get going. I have people waiting on me. So I'll talk to you all in a bit. And I don't know if I'll get back on here tonight. Can I try? I really want to finish the video, so I might give it a try, especially if I get a chance to fix the video. But anyway, I really do have to go. So I'll see you all later, and I'll finish the video later. The Philosophunculus one. It's a fun video. All right, take care.